Chapter 4483. That's only one of the reasons. Murongjiang thought for a bit and nodded. Not only that, you might be too hasty. I'm also a bit impatient. Secondly, I feel that Xiao Hua is different from before. I don't have the confidence to kill him. Murong Tsongyun shook his head. How is that possible? Boy has made great progress in 200 years. Could it be that he's one level higher than Boy? Only Xiao Hua himself knows about this. Murongjiang dragged out his voice and said, Thirdly, wasn't he suppressed by Qingyu's Demon King? How could he suddenly appear here? After we left the hidden immortal continent, we are no longer well informed. I'm afraid we don't know what happened in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Damn it. Murong Tsongyun cursed. Boy knows. Some family must have reached an agreement with the Great Sage Temple and rescued Xiao Hua. That's why he has the courage to talk to 7th Granduncle, and it's because that family is here that Xiao Hua came here. Murongjiang was stunned again and nodded. Yes, it must be so. Those who can talk to the Great Sage Temple are either first-class families or second-class families. The 4 great families are not in Zhaixing Lu, so they can only be first-class families. That day in the God-Devil Blood Pool, Gongshu, Duanmu, Huangfu, Zhongsun, Yuan, Kong, and Meng families were there. I'm afraid it's one of them. Boy, let's go out for a walk. Murong Tsongyun couldn't sit still and said, buy some information from Zhaixing Lu and see what happened in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Go. Murongjiang sat back down and said, you don't have to take Xiao Hua too seriously, he is just a Dao sect cultivator. Even if he has cultivated to the 7th grade of Essence Qi, he is still a loner, he won't be able to achieve anything big. If he can join our Murong family, it'll be good for you. If he can't, he'll be your enemy in the future. Boy. Murong Tsongyun bit his lips and said, Boy, I don't believe. I can't win him over. Be careful not to draw fire to yourself. Murongjiang picked up the scroll he had put down earlier and reminded him, do you still remember the matter of the star-picking tower in the Copper Pillar country? Since you've revealed the dragon bones to the East Sea Dragon Palace, don't act on your own initiative and show up at the auction. That time, Zhaixing Lu had almost found out about the Murong family. The patriarch has told you before that you can't be too headstrong. You should let go of what you should. Yes, thank you for your reminder, 7th Granduncle. Murong Tsongyun was startled and hastily lowered his head to reply. Go and come back quickly. Murongjiang said with a smile, the challenge will begin soon. I think there will be a lot of excitement waiting to be seen. Yes, the boy understands. Murong Tsongyun nodded and hurriedly left. When Xiao Hua came out from the Murong family's pavilion, a cold smile appeared on his face. Murong Tsongyun's guess wasn't wrong. Xiao Hua was indeed moved when she saw Murong Tsongyun, but after a few words, Murong Tsongyun mentioned that she had gone to Xiao Empire a few times. Xiao Hua became suspicious. Since Murong Tsongyun was so concerned about her, how could he not know that she was suppressed by Qingyu's Monster King? Even Ao Zhantian and Zhai Xingzi knew that Murong Tsongyun had the Murong family behind him, so there was no reason for her not to know. Of course, if it was Gongshu Isin, a woman who didn't know about worldly affairs and only cared about formations, perhaps even with the Gongshu family behind her, she wouldn't know that Xiao Hua was suppressed. However, Murong Tsongyun wanted to stand out in the Murong family, so how could she not care about the news of the 3 continents? How could she not know that Xiao Hua was suppressed? If Murong Tsongyun had mentioned Qingyu at that time, or even defended himself, Xiao Hua might not have turned hostile so quickly. However, Murong Tsongyun's cleverness backfired and he wanted to play dumb until the end, which made Xiao Hua realize that Murong Tsongyun was acting right in front of her. Since she was suspicious, Xiao Hua thought about the battle at the blood pool of gods and demons and made many discoveries. Looking at the meeting at the stairs and Murongjiang's behavior, Xiao Hua was even more certain that Murong Tsongyun wasn't as affectionate as he seemed on the surface. This affectionate side was like the sweet words of a female praying mantis, but behind it, there was a lot of cruelty and exploitation. Therefore, after telling Murongjiang about the battle at the blood pool of gods and demons, Xiao Hua was ready to leave. Facing Murongjiang's coercion, Xiao Hua could only sneer. In the end, Murongjiang had tested Xiao Hua's strength at the blood pool of gods and demons. If Murongjiang really wanted to fight, Xiao Hua didn't mind taking revenge and bullying the weak again. As for whether Murongjiang could take a punch from Xiao Hua, that wasn't something Xiao Hua would consider. Xiao Hua walked to the stairs, and her face had already changed into Zhong Xiaohua's. This time, Xiao Hua didn't want to use her original face even if she was beaten to death. She had only met Gongshu and Murong clan, but it had already made her so embarrassed. In the future, if she met other familiar cultivators, how should she address their elders? An unfamiliar 4th grade elemental energy cultivator wouldn't attract too much attention. Xiao Hua wandered around Zhai Xinglu for half a day, and also came across a few places to trade. But what he hoped for didn't happen. Now, most of the cultivators who came to Zhai Xinglu were preparing to enter Star Moon Palace. Who would pay attention to the bidding? Even the things prepared by Zhai Xinglu couldn't be seen in Xiao Hua's eyes. Apart from feeling some of the liveliness unique to the human race, Xiao Hua didn't seem to have gained anything. Seeing that it was boring, Xiao Hua had the intention to withdraw, and prepared to return to the top floor to rest. At this time, she heard a Zhai Xinglu disciple who was only at the 3rd grade elemental energy say, "Seniors, this junior just received news that the challenge to bury the hatchet will begin after a meal. This auction will end here. If seniors still want to bid, wait until after the challenge to bury the hatchet, then come back here to bid." Ha ha! That Zhai Xinglu disciple had just finished speaking when a burly armament cultivator called out, "Great, there's another show to watch. Brother Mu, I remember that you have some grudges with Brother Qingfeng from the Kong clan. Could it be that you also want to bury the hatchet here?" Beside the armament cultivator was naturally another armament cultivator, but this armament cultivator was slightly short, and his face was also yellow. This Brother Mu smiled coldly and said, "The matter between me and Qingfeng is not worth mentioning. How can it be resolved in the challenge to bury the hatchet? Besides, I came to Bright Moon Palace this time to seek an opportunity. It was an opportunity that I fought for with great difficulty from the clan. How can I make trouble for myself before entering?" "That's true." The fat armament cultivator scratched his head and said with a smile, "If not for some grievances that are difficult to resolve, who would fight here? Forget it, let's go and take a look." Xiao Hua was beside these 2 armament cultivators. He looked at these 2 Confucian cultivators whose strength was only at the upper middle of 5th grade essence force and muttered in his heart. Previously, Xiao Hua did not know the origins of Star Moon Palace and felt that it was very mysterious. He was afraid that only high-level cultivators from the 3 mainlands were qualified to come here. After Fairy Xingyu's introduction, Xiao Hua gradually understood that Star Moon Palace was most useful for cultivators and demons around 7th grade essence force. However, when he arrived at Zhai Xinglu, Xiao Hua actually saw Murong Tsongyun, Gongshu Isin, and other aristocratic family disciples who were only at 5th grade essence force wanting to enter Star Moon Palace. These aristocratic family disciples were, after all, from first-class aristocratic families. Perhaps their potential was limitless and they were qualified to enter Star Moon Palace. However, the 2 Confucian cultivators that Xiao Hua saw now had average strength and aptitude. Xiao Hua really did not know what special opportunity they would have if they entered Star Moon Palace. However, when he saw the smug look on their faces, Xiao Hua somewhat understood. At this point, the opportunity in Star Moon Palace was no longer important. What was important was whether or not they could obtain the qualification to enter Star Moon Palace. This was a kind of glory, a capital that could be flaunted. In the eyes of Fairy Xingyu and Shu Ji, Star Moon Palace is a matter of life and death. In the eyes of Gongshu Jingye and Murong Jiang, it is an opportunity for a breakthrough. However, in the eyes of many cultivators, it has become a kind of qualification. Xiao Hua sighed. "I have to say, in the eyes of different people, the same thing will have different effects. No matter how good the opportunity is, when it is fought over by everyone, it will also change its meaning. Seniors, there is no need to be anxious." Just as Xiao Hua was about to leave, the Zhai Xinglu disciple in the auction hall said loudly, "After a while, Zhai Xinglu will use the defensive array in the building to send all of you to the place where the former enmity will be buried." Haha, really? The fat armament cultivator had just taken a dozen steps when he heard this and could not help but laugh. This Jew's primordial stones are, at this point, the armament cultivator surnamed Zhu seemed to have spilled the beans and hurriedly shut his mouth. His two small eyes looked around and his face turned a shade of red. Brother Mu was also stunned, but he smiled slightly and said, "That's right, Zhai Xinglu's arrangement is excellent. When I met Brother Zhu in the hidden immortal continent, wasn't it also at Zhai Xinglu? I remember that day." Yes, yes. Seeing that Brother Mu had changed the topic, the armament cultivator surnamed Zhu hurriedly interrupted. His pair of small eyes looked left and right. When he saw Xiao Hua not far away with a faint smile, he fiercely glared at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua innocently shrugged his shoulders. He also did not want to hear it, but this armament cultivator surnamed Zhu's voice was very loud. Not only Xiao Hua, but many people nearby also heard it. A few of them could not help but laugh. Swoosh. In just a moment, a nebula began to appear all around the auction hall. This nebula surrounded the several thousand feet large auction hall. Moreover, as the nebula spread down the four walls, the entire auction hall began to become transparent. One by one, brilliant stars appeared in the nebula. When the nebula gradually disappeared, the brilliant stars revealed different human figures. At this time, the auction hall had already turned into a star shape. Chapter 4484. Boom. High up in the sky, there was a rumbling sound. Rings of light that were more dazzling than ordinary stars appeared. These rings of light were a few miles in size and rapidly expanded, enveloping an area of 100 miles. At this moment, streams of divine senses, elemental senses, and even more clear sight lights were scanning the entire starry sky. It seemed a little chaotic. Catcher. There was another rumble of thunder. The rings of light began to turn transparent and huge subbodies appeared from within. Although the rings of light were extremely tall, everyone could see everything within them clearly. Those subbodies were Murong Jiang, Gongshu Jingye, and the other martial grandmasters who were around the 7th grade of elemental power. These martial grandmasters released their vital energy and condensed it within the rings of light. Layers of confinement fell from the sky like city walls, enveloping the entire starry sky. The messy divine senses and clear sight lights from before were immediately swept away. No one dared to show any recklessness in front of the martial grandmasters. Xiao Hua stood on a star that was slowly rising. He squinted his eyes and looked at the martial grandmasters within the rings of light. The rings of light were huge and there were many martial grandmasters. Xiao Hua scanned with his eyes and knew that there were close to 200 martial grandmasters. This meant that there were close to 200 martial grandmasters who came to Zhai Xinglu to prepare to enter Xingyue Palace. Looking below the rings of light, other than the star that Xiao Hua was sitting on, there were hundreds of other stars that were gradually rising. Every star was filled with flickering silhouettes. There seemed to be more than 10,000 people. When all the stars had fallen below the rings of light, boom, there was another rumbling sound. In the middle of the rings of light, a full moon appeared out of thin air. The moonlight was like water, and a woman with picturesque features and dressed in palace attire flew out like a fairy. This woman was not as beautiful as Princess Baihua, but under the moonlight and starry sky, she had a unique charm. Almost everyone's gaze landed on her face, and they remained silent for a long time. "I am Nan Huayue. Greetings to all the seniors." The woman landed and bowed to the martial grandmasters within the rings of light. "Under the orders of my palace lord, I am here to help all the martial grandmasters bury the hatchet." "Very good." A proud voice sounded from within the halo. Xiao Hua looked over and saw a man with a simple face and thick eyebrows. First, the various aristocratic families hosted the challenges. Although it was somewhat legal, I always felt that it was unfair. Ever since Zhai Xinglu hosted the challenges, the situation has improved a lot. Today, this old man is very satisfied with the Starry Sky Arena. Please thank the Palace Lord on behalf of the Duanmu aristocratic family. Nan Huayue replied respectfully, "I understand. I will definitely convey seniors' gratitude." "All right, we don't need to say any more. The disciples of the aristocratic families all know the rules of the challenge to bury the hatchet. Before entering the Star Moon Palace, it's good to let these little kids stretch their muscles and bones. Gongshu Jingye opened his mouth, his voice like thunder. Yes, this old man hasn't seen so many aristocratic families' disciples gather together to exchange pointers for many years. I wonder how many outstanding disciples have emerged after so many years. Today, I really want to broaden my horizons, a young man in luxurious clothes said with a smile on his face. Duanmu Lianheng raised his head and looked at the man in luxurious clothes opposite him. He said disdainfully, "Brother Meng Cheng, this is a challenge to bury the hatchet. It's not a ranking battle for your Meng clan. If you don't have any grudges, there's no need to step forward. Brother Meng's words will cause some unnecessary misunderstandings. If there are some disciples who are as competitive as Brother Meng and want to stand out in this challenge, it will affect our plans to enter the Star Moon Palace." Why? Brother Duanmu seems to want to settle the personal grudges between us here. The Meng clan's great grandmaster Meng Cheng did not show any weakness. He smiled and said, although this challenge to bury the hatchet has yet to have a great grandmaster level battle, things in this world have always started from nothing. This Meng is willing to accompany Brother Duanmu to set this precedent. The words of an important figure had always been a necessity in some situations. None of the disciples present took the words of the Meng clan's great grandmaster seriously. The aristocratic families had many complicated relationships, so it was normal for them to casually tease each other. Unfortunately, just as the few great grandmasters from the aristocratic families were smiling, Duanmu Lianheng nodded and said, "Good." Then, a saber light that was like an exploding galaxy flew across the sky brilliantly and surged violently toward Meng Cheng, who was opposite the full moon. Although the entire starry sky was a part of the fragmentary star-cold moon great array, for the sake of the Confucian cultivators of the aristocratic family's challenge, there was no restriction or noble spirit in the starry sky. As the saber light swept past, lines of space cracks were formed, and the endless noble spirit pillar condensed into a phosphorescence that landed on the saber light. The roar completely covered the starry sky, and even the full moon was blown away. Damn it. Meng Cheng naturally did not expect Duanmu Lianheng to attack as he pleased. The saber light was already in front of him in the blink of an eye. The cold saber chi treated the halo as nothing and had already landed on Meng Cheng's subbody when Meng Cheng was caught off guard. Tens of thousands of fine lines split open on the subbody, and wisps of true chi flowed out from the fine lines. Meng Cheng did not doubt that if this saber hit him, his subbody would definitely be torn into pieces. Meng Cheng cursed in his heart and roared again, "Break!" Following this roar, Meng Cheng's subbody suddenly trembled, and a faint shadow flashed. The golden light turned into a fist that broke through the air and rushed toward the saber light that was like a river. The shadow had just appeared, but it was just a shadow. It only crossed a few dozen feet in the starry sky. The countless noble spirit pillar was even more vast than the saber light. The roar continuously crashed into the fist, and the armor inscriptions and tricolored clouds within the fist instantly condensed into a huge fist. The patterns on the fist were clear, and each pattern was a mountain. The tricolored clouds also covered the many mountains and rivers. At this time, the inscriptions on the armor also flowed on the surface of the fist, and a strand of human chi was produced like silk. The entire fist was filled with the unique noble spirit of the Meng family. It was like a mountain that blocked the murderous river of stars. Boom! The mountain-like fist collided with the water-like saber light. The water wrapped around the mountainside, and the mountain broke the water flow. In the space not far below Nanhuayue, the attacks of the two grandmasters finally collided. A huge roar sounded, and wisps of lightning actually flashed out. The noble spirit pillar turned into countless tiny vortexes and crazily surged into the starry sky in all directions. Within the lightning, the entire starry sky was shaking. Thousands of explosions were produced everywhere, and the space was torn apart, forming a storm that rushed toward the full moon. Nanhuayue's expression changed greatly. Starlight flashed around her body, and she wanted to escape toward the full moon. However, the noble spirit pillar imprisoned her for dozens of miles around her. Nanhuayue's figure moved a few times, but she couldn't fly out. The wave-like force had already rushed below her. Not only was her palace dress disheveled, Even the true energy protecting her body was scattered. At this critical moment, whoosh! The full moon not far from Nanhuayue suddenly bloomed with milky white moonlight. The moonlight was like milk spilling out. Wherever it flowed, all the forces were calmed. Not only did the danger around Nanhuayue disappear instantly, even the space that was torn apart by Duanmu Lianheng and Meng Cheng's attacks disappeared without a trace. When the moonlight filled the entire place, a tranquil and holy aura was slowly born in the nearby starry sky. The entire place was quiet, and there wasn't a trace of the mortal world. Everyone seemed to be intoxicated in the moonlight paradise. Senior Duanmu, Senior Meng. Nanhuayue suppressed her panic and said with a smile, "If the two of you want to participate in the challenge to bury the hatchet, it's naturally possible. However, you still need to report to me. Otherwise, wouldn't it be improper? Haha, we're all boorish people. We've truly disturbed the fairy." Meng Cheng was the first to speak, and he said with a smile, "This old man apologizes to the fairy in person." Hearing Meng Cheng's gentle and refined voice and his lukewarm tone, how could the boorish person he spoke of be himself? He was clearly mocking Duanmu Lianheng. However, Duanmu Lianheng also snorted coldly and didn't reply. Gongshu Jingyi smiled and said, "This old man heard that the Duanmu family was going to put on a good show today, but I didn't expect that the main character wouldn't appear, and Brother Duanmu would actually be a walk-on. This old man really doesn't understand. Are they trying to put on a show of strength? Or does Brother Duanmu really want to spar with Brother Meng Cheng?" Another voice sounded from afar, and he said with a smile, "That's right. If Brother Meng Cheng and Brother Duanmu fight, I'm afraid we'll have two fewer opponents entering the Star Moon Palace. Why wouldn't we be happy? Hurry up. Seniors." Nanhuayue pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Duanmu and the two seniors from the Meng family are just joking with me. You don't have to take it seriously. Seniors, if it's possible, can we bury the hatchet and start the challenge now?" "Yes, let's start." Duanmu Lianheng's voice sounded slightly cold. Meng Cheng also smiled and said, "Fairy Nan, please start. We'll listen to Zhai Xinglu's arrangements from now on." We don't dare. Nanhuayue said respectfully, "This junior is only cooperating with the seniors. The real decision is in the hands of the seniors." After she finished speaking, Nanhuayue raised her hand and took out a round purple square cauldron from her palace dress. She said, "Seniors, please put the names of the fellow immortals who are participating in this challenge into this general dispatch cauldron. This junior will invite these fellow immortals out one by one according to the rules of the challenge." Swoosh swoosh swoosh. As Nanhuayue sent the general dispatch cauldron into the starry sky, the jade eyes in the hands of the various great grandmasters turned into shooting stars and fell into the cauldron. Every time a jade eye fell, the sound of a drum would be heard from the cauldron. After the jade eyes disappeared, the sonorous and powerful battle drum formation music also left a lingering sound in the starry sky. Fight, fight, fight. The battle drums had just stopped, but the sound of thousands of horses neighing could be heard again. All the disciples from the various great grandmasters felt their blood boil, and they couldn't help but roar with the battle drum music. Chapter 4485. Thump, thump, thump. Another slow and heavy beat of the drum resounded. Nanhuayue's voice was filled with gentleness and desolation as he said, "According to the rules of the challenge to bury the hatchet, the aristocratic family's ranking will be the first to step out." As he spoke, a thunderous drumming sound rang out. Two extraordinarily handsome Pegasus phantoms flew out of the cauldron. Each of the Pegasus was carrying a square token. The flying horses landed in front of Nanhuayue. They snorted and flapped their wings. They looked exactly like divine steeds. Nanhuayue raised her hand and took the two tokens from the horse's back. The flying horses neighed and disappeared into the starry sky. Nanhuayue raised her left hand. Her eyes flashed and she smiled. "The first round is Duanmu Qing from the Duanmu family." As she spoke, she glanced at the other token and read, "Mo Jianli." Mo Jianli? Who is Mo Jianli? The moment Nanhuayue spoke, all the aristocratic family disciples were stunned. The few Confucian cultivators around Xiaohua began to discuss. "How come I didn't know there was a Mo family? Could it be that I am ignorant?" It's not that you are ignorant. This Mo Jianli is probably not an aristocratic family disciple. That's why we didn't know. Furthermore, according to what I know, the aristocratic family with a higher level will go first. If their opponent is not from the aristocratic family, they will go first. After all, this is a challenge between aristocratic families. If they don't show off their aura, how can they succeed? This Mo Jianli is unlucky, another person said in a low voice. It would be good if someone else was the leader of the Duanmu family. This senior's temper is not good. This Mo Jianli actually offended a Duanmu family disciple. I'm afraid he won't be able to leave alive, that's right. His anger was blocked by Great Grandmaster Meng just now. He has nowhere to vent it. If he has nowhere to vent it, he can't do it himself. This Duanmu Qing is only at the 4th level of essence energy. How powerful can his enemy, Mo Jianli, be? If he were to make a move, wouldn't he lose face first? As everyone was discussing, 2 faint beams of light flew out from the full moon and landed on 2 stars. Duanmu Qing, who looked like an elegant young master, flew into the starry sky along with the moonlight. She held a folding fan in her hand and looked very elegant. Under the other light beam, Mo Jianli flew out, looking slightly sloppy. Mo Jianli looked old. In the past 200 years, he had experienced all the sufferings of the world. He had seen all the vicissitudes of the world. He did not care about clothes anymore. Looking at Mo Jianli, one could see the maturity of the vicissitudes of life. Now, compared to Duanmu Qing, he was an uncle. Boom! Before Mo Jianli could land in front of Duanmu Qing, the entire place was filled with laughter. That Meng Cheng even shouted, "The disciples of the Duanmu family are really not making any progress. A Zhongsha disciple actually can't get along with a literary master. If this was my Meng family, I would have killed him with a single slap. Ha ha!" Amidst the roaring laughter, there was another wave of laughter. The Meng family's disciples all echoed. Inside the halo, Duanmu Lianheng's face was ashen. His 2 eyes stared at Duanmu Qing's back and anger rose in his heart. Duanmu Qing was from a side branch of the Duanmu family. Duanmu Lianheng originally did not care about it. However, Duanmu Qing mentioned that Xiao Hua was a Dao cultivator that the Duanmu family wanted to kill. Furthermore, Duanmu Qing was also a disciple of the Duanmu family. Duanmu Lianheng casually allowed her to participate in the challenge to bury the hatchet. However, Duanmu Lianheng did not expect that he would draw Duanmu Qing in the first round. Furthermore, the opponent that Duanmu Qing made the vow to was not Xiao Hua, but a literary master. Although he knew that there was something fishy going on, this joke was obviously over. Mo Jianli was originally a little terrified. However, when he heard the roaring laughter of the crowd, the unyielding spirit in his heart rose again. He swept his gaze across the crowd. Although he could not see many faces clearly, he was sure that the reason why he was displaced was definitely due to the pressure exerted by some of these disciples. The destruction of the Chongyun sect was also the result of these disciples' inaction. What did he have to fear when facing them? Only he had the advantage of suppressing them. Thinking of this, Mo Jianli straightened his back slightly. This straightening was like a sharp sword, like a beautiful jade horsetail whisk. The accumulation of over 200 years exploded at this moment. A glowing jade-like divine light shone from Mo Jianli's body. Seeing this, how could Xiao Hua not know what was going on? He stopped moving and looked at Mo Jianli with interest. If the previous Mo Jianli was Wen Chu's disciple, he would naturally not be qualified. However, the current Mo Jianli was probably barely qualified. Mo Jianli. Duanmu Qing saw Mo Jianli fly out and kept the folding fan in her hand. She smiled and said, "You really came out. Where's Xiao Hua? Did he stand you up? Since I made the vow with you, then I naturally came out. If you want to fight with Senior Xiao, then you can stand here and not leave." Mo Jianli did not have the previous uneasiness and said to Duanmu Qing, who was at the 4th grade of elemental energy. Duanmu Qing's face was filled with awkwardness. She did not dare to reply casually. She looked around and did not see Xiao Hua's shadow. She said, "If Xiao Hua does not dare to come out, you are also not my opponent. How about this, You apologize to me on behalf of Xiao Hua and this challenge will end here. No way. Mo Jianli shook his head and said, what Senior Xiao did was not wrong. Why should he apologize to you? If we talk about the matter itself, you should be the one apologizing. Of course, since it is a challenge to let bygones be bygones, there is no point in saying all this. I accept the challenge from the aristocratic families. Mo Jianli finished his sentence in one breath. Duan Muqing was so angry that she almost fainted. Because at this moment, he had no way of explaining anything. He had already become a profligate son who used his power to bully others. All right. Duan Muqing nodded and said, since that is the case, I will fulfill your wish. If Xiao Hua does not come, I will fight with you. What if Senior Xiao comes? Mo Jianli said sarcastically, are you going to be a coward? Mo Jianli. Duan Muqing was completely enraged. She roared angrily, this is a challenge to let bygones be bygones. Don't show off your filthy word. Are you going to fight, or not? I don't care. Mo Jianli was not angry at all. He only shrugged and said, the key is to see if Duanmu eldest young master, are you going to fight or not? I. Duan Muqing gritted her teeth. In the end, she still shouted, if it is you, I will fight. Without waiting for Duan Muqing to finish speaking, a thunderous sound came from afar. Duanmu Lianheng was already impatient and ordered. Duan Muqing's body shook. She could only nod and said, that's right, fight. When the word fight came out, Duan Muqing suddenly felt a chill down her spine. She realized that she had been tricked. Needless to say, this must be Xiao Hua's plan. Under the eyes of thousands of people, he forced her to fight. Duan Muqing did not know how strong Xiao Hua was. Just based on Xiao Hua's cultivation, Duan Muqing was not afraid. However, the problem was that even Gongshu Yixin had to call Xiao Hua senior. How would he dare to fight Xiao Hua? Sure enough, just as Duan Muqing's voice landed, a figure appeared indifferently. Under his feet was a cloud and he flew out from one of the stars. Seeing Xiao Hua's thin and tall figure, Duan Muqing immediately looked like she had lost her father. Her face was pale and her eyes were spitting fire as she stared at Xiao Hua. If looks could kill, Xiao Hua would have died 100 times. Senior Xiao. Nan Huayue opened her mouth in surprise. Previously, when she heard Duan Muqing mention Xiao Hua's name, she had some doubts. However, she did not expect that a mere scholar realm cultivator would dare to offend a human Mahayana realm cultivator. However, Nan Huayue only opened her mouth and did not say anything else. She was afraid that she would disrupt Xiao Hua's plan. Of course, she also did not think that Xiao Hua would really attack Duan Muqing. Sure enough, Xiao Hua flew to Mo Jianli's side and said with a smile, this Xiao is here. You should obediently be a coward. Ha ha ha. Another wave of laughter rang out. Duan Muqing's face was incomparably ashen. However, after the laughter, there was also a lot of discussion. Good heavens, who is this cultivator? How can he be so arrogant? Ayo, it's actually a Daoist cultivator. It looks like, he's just a Yuanying realm cultivator of the 4th grade. Nonsense, if he's a Yuanying realm cultivator of the 5th grade, would you still be able to see him here? No, a Yuanying realm cultivator is on par with Duan Muqing. How can he force Duan Muqing into such a sorry state? Fight. If Duan Muqing cowered now, then he would really become a coward. He would never be able to see Gongshu Yiming's face again. Therefore, Duan Muqing's eyes were also red as she shouted, Xiao Hua, this one has already accumulated hatred with you for more than 200 years. Today, we can finally bury the hatchet. This one has been looking forward to this battle for a long time. Ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed and pointed at Duan Muqing. If you wanted to fight, you could have fought back then. At that time, you could have fought with this Xiao. Perhaps in the future, there wouldn't be the Duanmu clan's kill order. However, at this time, you are no longer worthy to fight with this Xiao. Kill order. What is going on? Another person asked loudly. Xiao Hua did not need to turn his head to know that this was a disciple of the Meng clan. Naturally, there's no need to talk about such filthy things under the moonlight. Xiao Hua said with a smile, Besides, this Xiao is a person of noble character. I have long forgotten about such things. Haha, good Daoist Xiao. Hearing Xiao Hua slander the Duanmu clan, the Meng clan disciple immediately gave Xiao Hua a tall hat. Daoist Xiao? Suddenly, a few martial grandmasters sitting in the halo trembled as if they had realized something. They blurted out, Xiao, is it Xiao country's Xiao? Meng Sheng of the Meng clan was the first to realize. He shouted, Xiao Hua, don't be afraid. My Meng clan will stand up for you in this battle. What kill order? To actually issue a kill order to Daoist Xiao, whose name shook the entire hidden immortal continent. You don't even have the most basic conscience. What qualifications do you have to sit here and call yourself a Confucian clan? Chapter 4486. Damn it, damn it. Duanmu Lianheng cursed a few times. He really did not think so much. Moreover, the kill order was something that happened before the Godfiend blood pool. It had nothing to do with the Xiao Empire later. Hehe, thank you for your high opinion of me. Xiao Hua smiled and raised his hand to signal to the surroundings. I don't need your help to deal with the Duanmu family. If I need your help in the future, I will definitely ask. Hee. Duanmu Lianheng could no longer endure and laughed coldly. I want to see how a Daoist cultivator will deal with my Duanmu family. Duanmu Qing, fight. Yes, the boy knows. Duanmu Qing was forced to do something beyond her ability. She clenched her teeth and said, I would rather die than live in Dishana. You think too highly of yourself. You are just a pile of rubble. Xiao Hua said indifferently. You are not worthy enough to fight with me. As he spoke, Xiao Hua said to Mo Genli, come back. Yes, senior. Seeing Xiao Hua standing there, looking down on the disciples of the aristocratic families as if they were nothing, Mo Genli was convinced and flew back to Xiao Hua's side. Chimpage. Duanmu Qing snorted coldly. If I don't try, who knows if you are talking nonsense? As she spoke, the tricolored qi around Duanmu Qing's body surged. Streams of awe-inspiring qi flew out from the void and collided with his body. A kind of desolation that felt like the wind was blowing and the water was freezing was slowly born. Xiao Hua smiled faintly. With a wave of his left hand, the Kunlun mirror appeared. One of the light pillars shot out and Yuan Ya flew out from the light pillar with his bare hands. He stood in the starry sky in a daze and looked around at the Confucian cultivators in the halo. Sigh. Every Confucian cultivator who was glanced at by Yuan Ya felt a chill down their spine and sucked in a breath of cold air. Seventh grade elemental energy. Yuan Ya's gaze only glanced at the halo and immediately saw Xiao Hua behind him. In an instant, Yuan Ya had already treated all the heroes as nothing. He bowed and said, Master, why did you call me out? Master? Duanmu Qing was stunned. A 7th grade elemental energy Confucian cultivator actually called Xiao Hua Master? How is this possible? His name is Duanmu Qing, I presume you know him as well. Xiao Hua pointed at Duanmu Qing and said, he wants to challenge me, do as you see fit. Oh! When Yuan Ya heard this, he turned to look at Duanmu Qing. After sizing her up, he grinned and said, yes, master. I know this brat. You. Seeing Yuan Ya's appearance, Duanmu Qing suddenly had a slight impression of him. Back then, in front of the star-plucking tower in the Bronze Pillar Nation, Yuan Ya, Xiao Jian and Liu Yi were also by his side. However, Yuan Ya was too lowly at that time. How could Duanmu Qing remember him? If Xiao Hua hadn't mentioned it, he definitely wouldn't have remembered it. That's right, that's me. Clouds appeared under Yuan Ya's feet as he flew towards Duanmu Qing to take a look. He continued to say, so it is the awe-inspiring young master Duanmu from that night. It has been many years since we last met. As he spoke, Yuan Ya shouted in a deep voice, back then, you were so arrogant and domineering. You sat on the dragon horse-flying chariot and were so arrogant. Today, take a punch from me. As Yuan Ya's voice fell, a boom. Sound broke through the air. Yuan Ya raised his arm slightly and punched out with his right fist. Yuan Ya's punch was completely different from Meng Cheng's. The size of his fist didn't change, but when it landed in the starry sky, it was like a stone falling into water. Not only did it cause ripples, it also brought about waves. The space around Duanmu Qing was shattered layer by layer like snowflakes. Duanmu Qing was originally afraid of Yuan Ya, who was at the 7th grade of essence power. When she saw Yuan Ya's merciless attack, not only was she terrified, but she saw that the fist had just appeared and the fist technique was already in front of her. The fist force was like a tidal wave as it roared and destroyed Duanmu Qing's mouth and nose. Furthermore, a ferocious flame that covered the sky and covered the earth firmly imprisoned Duanmu Qing like a hungry wolf hunting for its prey. Everyone was shocked. The close to 200 Confucian martial grandmasters were also dumbfounded. This was because they had just seen Yuan Ya's fist dance and his fist had just left a mark in the starry sky. Yuan Ya's fist had already landed on Duanmu Qing's body without any exaggeration. Pu. It was a very ordinary sound, not much louder than the sound of a flower bud blooming. Yuan Ya's fist made contact with Duanmu Qing's chest. Catcher. Within Duanmu Qing's Confucian robe, there was a cracking sound. Several rays of light flashed and the Confucian robe turned into butterflies and scattered. At the same time, the treasured armor within the Confucian robe was also shattered into pieces. Not only that, under the treasured armor, pu, the sound of flesh and blood bursting could be heard. Countless amounts of true energy surged out from Duanmu Qing's body. Pu. There was another muffled sound. Duanmu Qing raised her head and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood was mixed with a rich three-colored true energy. This true energy and blood actually transformed into a dim jade lotus in mid-air. However, this jade lotus disappeared in a flash. Duanmu Qing's body was like duckweed as she slowly descended from the starry sky. Damn it! Duanmu Lianheng raised his hand and waved. Just as a ray of cloud was about to fly out, Nan Huayue raised his hand and pointed. A ray of moonlight covered the unconscious Duanmu Qing. When Duanmu Lianheng saw that Duanmu Qing was saved by Nan Huayue, he could no longer hold himself back. He urged his sub-body to fly out from the halo and said angrily, "You are a senior with the 7th grade of essence energy. How can you deal with a junior with the 4th grade of essence energy? You have shattered his middle dantian. How can he cultivate in the future? Aren't you bullying the weak?" Yuan Ya coldly glanced at him. That gaze carried a kind of vigilance. Seeing that Duanmu Lianheng was standing there and didn't directly attack, Yuan Ya said, "Back then, my master was only at the 3rd grade of essence energy. This Duanmu Qing commanded Duanmu Qiu to surround and attack him. Furthermore, my master was all alone in the world and your Duanmu clan issued a kill order. Who are you calling shameless? I heard from my master that the Duanmu clan actually sent a martial grandmaster with the 5th grade of essence energy to kill him. Who are you calling bullying the weak? I only crippled his cultivation because he was too weak. If he was a little stronger, I would have directly killed him." How arrogant was Duanmu Lianheng? He was a Confucian cultivator who could take down the golden body of Nanwu Guanyin Bodhisattva with a single blade. However, facing Yuan Ya's rebuttal, he actually didn't know how to reply. Following that, Yuan Ya glanced at Duanmu Lianheng and said, "I am Fortune Gate's Yuan Ya. Who are you? Do you want to fight? If you want to fight, then fight. If you don't want to fight, then scram." Woo! When had Duanmu Lianheng ever encountered such humiliation in his life? He didn't say anything else. He waved his right hand and that blade light flew out again. It was like a thunderbolt falling towards Yuan Ya. The space above Yuan Ya's head collapsed bit by bit. "Damned old man, sneak attack again." Meng Cheng shouted, "What else can your Duanmu clan do besides sneak attacks?" Who? Seeing that the blade light was about to reach his body, Yuan Ya didn't care at all. He used the ethereal steps and his right hand moved. The Big Dipper divine fist was swung out again. Where the fist landed, the space was also shattered. Spiderweb-like spatial cracks surged out. Ka! In a flash, the fist landed on the blade light. Amidst the sound of metal and stone, the blade light was smashed into pieces by the stone-like fist. A bloodthirsty fist wind passed through the blade intent and directly rushed into Duanmu Lianheng's body. Ah! This This Dao Gates cultivator is so powerful. The group of Confucian disciples were shocked, and they all exclaimed in unison, this so-called Fortune Gate disciple, Yuan Ya, is able to fight to a draw with Duanmu Lianheng of the Duanmu family. Then what about the master he mentioned? Wouldn't he be able to easily take Duanmu Lianheng's life? Hiss. Not only were the Confucian disciples shocked, even Duanmu Lianheng was shocked once again. This fist wind was filled with blood. If a cultivator hadn't heard of the blood massacre, they definitely wouldn't have such a fist wind. Although Duanmu Lianheng's cultivation seemed to be slightly stronger than Yuan Ya's, his morale definitely couldn't compare to Yuan Ya's, who had fought to the death with the Devil Clan. Puff, puff, puff. Like an explosion, the protective layer around Duanmu Lianheng's body rushed into his body through his hand. Not only did the explosion cause cracks to appear on Duanmu Lianheng's Confucian cultivation, it even created ripples in the nearby starry sky. Senior Duanmu. Before Duanmu Lianheng could circulate his true qi to resist this fist wind, Nan Huayue anxiously said, "You're not in the general dispatching cauldron, so you can't do anything." Duanmu Lianheng hurriedly retreated and took a deep breath. The clouds around his body surged once again, and he barely managed to disperse Yuan Ya's fist wind. Then, he pretended to be innocent and pointed at Yuan Ya, saying, this senior Yuan Ya is the disciple designated by Senior Xiao, so he's in line with the rules of the challenge to bury the hatchet. Nan Huayue said, "You didn't receive Duanmu Qing's order, so if you want to do anything, you can put in the command talisman again." All right. How could Duanmu Lianheng show weakness? He narrowed his eyes and said, "I'll challenge this Daoist Xiao." Just as Duanmu Lianheng finished speaking, Nan Huayue, Duanmu Lianheng, and many other Confucian martial grandmasters shone with a radiance. Nan Huayue was startled. She raised her hand and picked up a jade pendant. Her clear gaze fell upon it, and a surprised expression appeared on her face. After a moment, she said, "Seniors, the Tower Lord has sent a message that the Xianhuang Command Talisman is going to update the Xianhuang Proclamation. Junior remembers that all the seniors have bid for the Xianhuang Proclamation from my Zhai Xinglu. Presumably, it was the Tower Lord who sent the message to all of you. If it's possible, Junior will announce the Xianhuang Proclamation here." "All right." Meng Cheng clapped his hands and smiled. "After reading the Xianhuang Proclamation, we'll see how Duanmu Lianheng sneak attacks Daoist Xiao." "Shut up." Duanmu Lianheng roared. "Meng Cheng, if you're not convinced, you can come down and fight. Can you wait until this old man comes down?" Meng Cheng smiled and said, "You'd better think about how to deal with this Fortune Gates disciple after the Xianhuang Proclamation is updated. If there are no objections, Junior will announce the new Xianhuang Proclamation on behalf of my Zhai Xinglu." Nan Huayue looked at everyone and asked. Chapter 4487. Quick, quick, quick. Gongshu Jingyi said with a smile, "I want to see who will become an influential figure in the Daoist sect in a few years." Hearing that the Xianhuang token had updated the Xianhuang Proclamation, all the Confucian cultivators were in high spirits. They all looked at Nan Huayue with wide eyes. After all, the Xianhuang Proclamation was not only a hunting list, but also a huge gamble with the 3 continents as a plate. All the Confucian cultivators wanted to get some excitement from the Xianhuang Proclamation. However, when everyone's gaze fell on Nan Huayue, his face turned red again. He seemed to be embarrassed as he said, "Seniors, I have a small condition. Speak quickly." Duanmu Lianheng scolded impatiently. Meng Cheng said coldly, "Brother Duanmu, why are you so rude? As the representative of the Duanmu family, even if you can't have tender feelings for the fairer sex, I'm afraid you can't scold a young girl, right? Can't you see that she's embarrassed before she even speaks? Damn it." Duanmu Lianheng's eyes overflowed with brilliance as he looked at Meng Cheng. His tone was filled with anger. However, he only cursed inwardly. He glanced at Yuan Ya from the corner of his eyes and suppressed his anger. "I know that seniors have already bid for the Xianhuang Proclamation." Nan Huayue smiled apologetically. "However, the Xianhuang Proclamation will be transmitted to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm after it's published on the Hidden Immortal Continent. Just now, the Tower Master sent a message saying that if we want to publish it together with the Hidden Immortal Continent, it will cost a lot of origin stones. If seniors want to see it now, Please, please, take out 50% of the origin stones. I'm sorry, seniors. Damn it, isn't this raising the price? Murong Jiang cursed in a low voice. Gongshu Jingyi pondered for a moment and said, Miss Nan, your tower master is right. If we use ordinary methods to obtain the Xianhuang proclamation, it won't cost too much even in the 1,000 demons sacred realm. However, there will be a long delay. Now that we want to obtain the Xianhuang proclamation in both the 1,000 demons sacred realm and the hidden immortal continent, I'm afraid we'll have to use some secret formations of the star-picking tower. Even my Gongshu family doesn't have such a secret formation in the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Of course, my Gongshu family also knows how difficult it is to construct the Xianhuang proclamation. It's worth it to spend some origin stones. Fine, my Gongshu family is willing to take out these primordial stones. As he spoke, Gongshu Jingyi sent a voice transmission to a star in the distance. A disciple of the Gongshu family flew over with the yin-yang bracelet and handed it to Nan Huayue. Nan Huayue released his divine perception to take a look before carefully withdrawing it. He bowed and said, Many thanks to Senior Gongshu. You are the one who empathizes with Zhai Xinglu's hard work. Since the Gongshu aristocratic family had taken the lead, the other aristocratic families didn't have much to say. In just a moment, the aristocratic families also replenished their prime val stones. After Nan Huayue sent all of the origin stones into the full moon above his head, he heard a series of rumbling sounds from the starry sky. A fist-sized vortex appeared amidst the rumbling sounds. Several dark green threads of lightning flickered within the vortex, and a kind of powerful void energy surged out from the vortex and instantly covered the entire space. Teleportation channel? Xiao Hua glanced over and couldn't help but frown. This was because the dark green threads of lightning were very similar to the three corpses yin lightning. The void energy within the vortex even revealed the aura of a teleportation channel. Boom, boom, boom. After the whirlpool was formed, the sound of thunder slowed down. However, with every rumble, the whirlpool would increase in size. In less than half a cup of tea's time, the space above the full moon was enveloped by the whirlpool. At this time, the vortexes overlapped and became heavier, like rotating stars. An incomparably vast aura came from the vortexes, and between the vortexes, the strands of lightning that were like hair before were now like horned dragons. These lightning bolts were connected to different vortexes, and as they flickered, they seemed to have the power to destroy the world. Other great masters might not have felt anything, but Gongshu Jingyi's eyes flashed with silver moon pupils, and his face showed astonishment. The Gongshu family had always been famous for their arrays, and Gongshu Jingyi was also an array master. However, he had never seen the Gongshu family build such a huge defensive array. Moreover, in his silver moon pupils, he didn't see any trace of a defensive array at all. He didn't even see the Dharma power of an ordinary Taoist array. No wonder Zhai Xinglu is so powerful. Gongshu Jingyi thought to himself in surprise. Just from this inexplicable array, I can see how extraordinary Zhai Xinglu is from one side. Not to mention my Gongshu family, even the four great families might not be able to build such an array in the 1,000 demons sacred realm to directly receive the news of the Xianhuang token updating the Xianhuang list, right? Gongshu Jingyi was surprised, and so were the other great masters of Confucian cultivation. The disciples of Confucian cultivation who were on many stars were already drunk. Previously, everyone thought Zhai Xinglu was taking advantage of the situation and wanted to collect more vitality stones. However, when they saw such a huge array for the purpose of sending messages, none of them felt that the vitality stones they had spent before were in vain. Boom, boom, boom. Just as everyone was waiting, the vortexes of different sizes roared again. Bolts of 5 Qi righteous thunder and lightning bolts of 5 Qi righteous thunder and lightning bolts fell. Inscription chains scattered after the lightning bolts, striking the starry sky like a heavenly punishment. Under the lightning bolts and inscription chains, thousands of immortal palace wills rushed over like thousands of galloping horses. The space under the vortexes was swept clean, leaving only the awe-inspiring Qi. Then, waves of green water rushed in. The green water carried the immortal palace's string music. Under the cover of the water, immortal beasts and birds, as well as immortal palace pavilions and beautiful immortal palace buildings, appeared. Many disciples of Confucian cultivation families were mesmerized. Roar! Just as everyone was mesmerized, a dragon's roar sounded. The tens of thousands of palaces shattered, and thousands of hectares of greenery collapsed. A huge black dragon flew out of the debris. When the black dragon rushed high into the sky, roar! Another tiger's roar sounded, and an earthy yellow tiger roared out. The dragon soared and the tiger leaped. Catcher! The 5 righteous thunder struck out of nowhere, and the black dragon turned into a blacklist. The list was faintly surrounded by dragon shapes. The yellow tiger naturally turned into a yellow list, and there was a tiger shape at the bottom of the list. Great! Dozens of disciples of Confucian cultivation families on the stars couldn't help but cheer. This awe-inspiring chi was the immortal palace's chi righteous chi. Boom, boom, before the disciples could cheer, 2 more thunderbolts struck the top of the 2 lists. Under the thunderbolts, not only did the 4 ancient inscriptions of Profound List and Yellow List appear on the 2 lists, but a solemn, dignified, and mighty aura gushed out from the 4 characters and filled the entire space. Chimpage. Xiao Hua looked at the appearance of the Profound Yellow List and couldn't help but snort coldly. He inwardly criticized, although this chi righteous chi looks grand, it's actually strong on the outside but weak on the inside. It's just a list. It's just borrowing the name of the immortal palace to increase its own prestige. Swoosh. The Profound Yellow List was revealed, and thousands of clouds gushed out from the void. Those clouds floated over the Profound Yellow List, and like dots of ink falling down, blood-colored names appeared on the Profound Yellow List one by one. The first name on the Profound List was Grand Mist Ancestor of the Great Desolate Mountain, the second was Lianghui Mountain Daoist Master, and the third was Dark Knight of the Burning Glass Pool. These 3 Daoist cultivators' names were huge, but the names behind them were much smaller. Among them, Zhai Xingzi, Zhong Daoran, and Zunkong Shangren, who Xiao Hua was familiar with, were also ranked 71st, 79th, and 82nd respectively. Overturning Heaven Shangren was ranked 53rd. Ao Zhantian and Shui Mingzi were not on this profound list. Sigh. Xiao Hua's gaze fell, and he couldn't help but frown. The Daoist cultivators above the 4th level of origin power are listed on the profound list. There are a total of 108 of them. So many cultivators above the spirit severing stage, how come I don't know so many of them? It seems like the hidden immortal continent is really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Xiao Hua deliberately looked at the last few names on the profound list, because in his impression, he should be ranked first on the yellow list before he entered the Dragon Island. And he killed the assassin of the mysterious Yellow Order, so he should be ranked on the profound list. Sure enough, 200 years was enough to erase a lot of memories. His name didn't appear on the profound list, so no one knew that Xiao Hua was once ranked on the profound list. After looking at the profound list, the yellow list also appeared in the multicolored light. 360 bloody names appeared in front of everyone. The first one was Daoist Master Qing Shu of the Great Kang Mountain Range. Soaring Dragon Mountain Range Xiong Yi, Soaring Dragon Mountain Range Li Xiong, and His Highness Lan of the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range were ranked 67th, 81st, and 107th respectively. As for Chang Yu of the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range, he was ranked 304th because he was only at the early nascent soul stage. Xin Ping, Shu Tingzi, and the others were not on the profound list. Xiao Hua had seen the other Daoist cultivators on the Yaotai Mountain before, but Xiao Hua didn't know most of them. After the multicolored light faded, the profound list and the yellow list gradually returned to normal. Those bloody names seemed like a mocking smile, and even more so, it seemed like they were looking at the numerous Confucian cultivators with desolate eyes. Oh! Murong Jiang, who was in the distant halo, asked in a low voice. This old man remembers that Xiao Hua was ranked last on the previous profound list. Why is there no trace of him here? I'll let Senior Murong know. Nan Huayue said in a low voice. Junior checked the profound list before. Senior Xiao was once on the yellow list, and later on, he was ranked on the profound list. Then, for some unknown reason, he disappeared again. Xiao Hua. I remember now, isn't he that Daoist cultivator who was suppressed in by Qingyu some time ago? Another great grandmaster from a Confucian family asked curiously, since he has been suppressed, he will naturally disappear from the profound board. That Confucian martial grandmaster naturally said what the majority of the Confucian cultivators were thinking. The entire halo once again returned to normal. Everyone seemed to be pondering why Xiao Hua suddenly left by Qingyu, and also seemed to be waiting for the profound list to be updated. Chapter 4488. Rumble. Thunderous sounds were heard again from the huge whirlpool that enveloped the space. Then, the chains of Ming Lu swayed wantonly in the whirlpool like a horned dragon. A feeling that Ming Lu couldn't escape arose from the bottom of everyone's heart. Woo! Amidst the rumbling, the 9-colored clouds surged out. Suddenly, a strange whistling sound came from the clouds. The clouds shrunk rapidly, and a bloody light appeared in the vortex. A meteor that was several feet long flew out from the vortex. This meteor had a bloody tail and crashed into the yellow board at lightning speed. Catcher. A crisp sound was heard. The name of the last name on the yellow board was smashed into pieces. A red light flashed, and a large word that looked like it was written with a bloody brush appeared. Fortune Gates Liu Peng. Fortune Gate. A Confucian cultivator said strangely, since when did the mysterious yellow board put a bounty on the disciples of our Confucian sects? Isn't this nonsense? Not necessarily. Another Confucian cultivator frowned and said, maybe it's a Daoist sect. Brother Situ, are you confused? Since when did our hidden immortal continent have a Daoist sect? Of course there isn't one on the hidden immortal continent, but it doesn't mean there isn't one in the Pure Land, right? Those bald donkeys have always indulged Daoist cultivators. Previously, many of the people on the mysterious yellow board were Daoist cultivators living in seclusion in the Pure Land. Chen-ph, Brother Sima? Meng Cheng's face had a trace of excitement. He snorted and said, have you two brothers forgotten? Wasn't the one who blocked Duanmu Lianheng's sneak attack in the challenge just now Yuan Ya of the Fortune Gate? Ayo, that's right, that's right. The two Confucian cultivators suddenly came to their senses. After all, the saber and fist earlier were too fast, and Yuan Ya's self-introduction did not attract too much attention. If Meng Cheng had not mocked Duanmu Lianheng for being a Fortune Gate disciple, he probably would not have remembered. Fortune Gate. With Meng Cheng's reminder, in the entire space, more than 10,000 Confucian disciples and hundreds of Confucian cultivator families all looked at Xiao Hua and Yuan Ya. The Fortune Gate's reputation was like the rising sun, revealing a ray of dawn in the 3-continent. Fortune Gate's Liu Peng? Xiao Hua was a little confused. He had not expected that the first person to reveal himself would be one of his Fortune Gate's disciples. However, he had no recollection of Liu Peng's name. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua glanced at Yuan Ya. Unfortunately, Yuan Ya was as silent as always. He only glanced at the yellow board before focusing his attention on Duanmu Lianheng. Congratulations, Senior Xiao. Nan Huayue said respectfully. Fortune Gate's disciple on the ranking list. Xiao Hua smiled. He looked at the profound yellow bulletin and the surrounding scholarly cultivator clans and said, this is the hunting bulletin. What's there to be happy about? Xiao Hua's voice had yet to land, and Nan Huayue had yet to open his mouth. Woo! There was another strange whistling sound, and another blood-red meteor flew out from the vortex. It smashed through the rosy clouds, dodged the Minglu chains, and crashed into the yellow board. Precisely, the second name that was written upside down shattered, and the name that was revealed was Fortune Gate's Yu Buping. Motherfucker, I understand now. Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something, and the corners of his mouth curved into a smile. These two Yu Buping and Liu Peng, aren't they Yu Zhongquan's Yu clan and Liu Yi's Liu clan's disciples? I'm afraid they have already arrived at the soaring Dragon Mountain range, and even attracted the attention of the Immortal Palace. That's why the profound yellow bulletin change. Seeing this, Meng Cheng asked curiously, what's going on? Why are there two Fortune Gate's disciples in succession? This profound yellow bulletin, is there something wrong with it? Then, he turned to Nan Huayue and asked, Miss Nan, your star-picking tower's defensive formation is fine, right? Nan Huayue said proudly, Senior Meng, please rest assured. Even if there is something wrong with the profound yellow bulletin, my star-picking tower's defensive formation is absolutely fine. Woo woo woo. Before Nan Huayue's voice fell, another violent gust of wind came from the whirlpool. This gust of wind was so sharp that not only did it suppress Nan Huayue's voice, but it also filled the entire space. Then, dozens of blood-red meteors flew out one after another, crazily slamming into the profound yellow bulletin. The entire profound yellow bulletin was distorted, and even Huang Hu, who was below the profound yellow bulletin, let out a mournful wail. Catcher! Catcher! Bursts of cracks appeared on the profound yellow bulletin like beans being fried. One by one, the blood-red names were shattered, and brand new names appeared on the profound yellow bulletin. Although these names were different, they all had the words Fortune Gate in front of their heads. Woo woo! Everyone was shocked, and a burst of screams that were crazier than the howling of the wind rang out. It actually suppressed the sound of the meteors crashing into the profound yellow bulletin. How is this possible? How is this possible? How is this possible? A Tao cultivation sect actually has so many disciples on the profound yellow bulletin? How is this still called the profound yellow bulletin? Just call it the bounty bulletin. There's definitely something wrong with the profound yellow bulletin. How can it update so many profound yellow bulletin boards at once? Where did this fortune gate come from? How come I've never heard of it before? How can they have so many disciples? Woo woo! The crowd exclaimed. The shouts and doubts did not stop. The second wave of wind whistling was heard. The entire whirlpool in the sky turned crimson red. Hundreds of crimson stars flew down again. They collided with the yellow board even more violently than before. The entire yellow board flickered continuously. It was shaking violently as if it was about to collapse. Woo woo! Everyone exclaimed again. On the profound yellow bulletin, between the 200th and the 300th, it was completely occupied by the names of the Fortune Gate's disciples. There were no other Tao cultivation sect's disciples at all. 160 disciples. Gongshu Jingyi was a little dumbfounded. He stole a glance at Xiao Hua, who looked calm in the sky, and murmured in a low voice, even if they're all gold core realm cultivators, this Fortune Gate is really terrifying. How could other Confucian cultivators not think so when Gongshu Jingyi thought so? They all looked at Xiao Hua doubtfully, thinking about how to quickly report this matter to the sect. Unfortunately, their imagination was still too shallow. Just as they were thinking about how to deal with the Fortune Gate, woo-woo, another round of meteor shower unexpectedly came. Boom boom boom. The profound yellow bulletin was once again smashed into pieces by this meteor shower. One by one, the shining names on the profound yellow bulletin refreshed from the 100th to the 200th. What also made the tens of thousands of Confucian cultivators dumbfounded was that these names still carried the brilliance of the Fortune Gate. Boom! All the disciples present went crazy. Gongshu Yixin screamed at Gongshu Yiming, "Sister, am I dreaming? What is going on? Is the world going to be rewritten? I don't know." Gongshu Yiming also stuttered. Now she was also confused. Looking at the shining stars on the profound yellow bulletin, and then looking at the tall and thin figure under the moonlight, and then thinking about what Xiao Hua said to her before, she had already lost her mind. Damn it. Murong Tsongyun's beautiful face also lost its color. At this time, how could she not know what was going on? Not only did she regret that she thought herself clever, but she also regretted that she didn't catch this little cultivator with infinite potential. 260 disciples. Murong Jiang's face was ashen, and he whispered, even if they are all golden core disciples, it is definitely the biggest sect in the last 100,000 years. Unfortunately, Murong Jiang's heart was very clear that he was just deceiving himself. If it were only golden core disciples, the profound yellow order wouldn't have sent them to the profound yellow bulletin. Among the 260 disciples of the Fortune Gate, at least half of them were nascent soul disciples. In other words, the Fortune Gate had a total of 130 nascent soul disciples. This was absolutely beyond Murong Jiang's imagination. However, there was only more astonishment, but no more astonishment. Today was destined to shock the profound yellow order, the immortal palace, the entire hidden immortal continent, and all the scholarly families. Woo-woo. Nearly 100 red meteors flew out. This time, although the number of Fortune Gate's disciples was less than 100, these 100 people once again disrupted the top 100 rankings of the Yellow Bulletin. The Great Kang Mountain's Daoist master Qing Shu, who was originally the first on the Yellow Bulletin, was suddenly pushed down to the 90th place. Li Xiong, Xiong Yi, and Prince Lan, who were previously on the Soaring Dragon mountain range, were now on the Fortune Gate. Chang Yu's name disappeared, and the other 100 or so names of the other Daoist disciples were also smashed into powder. Xiong Yi, Prince Lan, and Li Xiong were now in the top 3 of the Yellow Bulletin. Oh, that's good. An unknown scholarly cultivator slightly breathed a sigh of relief and said, "This old man remembers that Xiong Yi's cultivation is only at the mid-nascent soul stage. Although some of these Fortune Gate's disciples are already at the nascent soul stage, they have just stepped into the nascent soul stage. Even if they are only at the early nascent soul stage, there are 300 nascent soul disciples. Isn't this too terrifying?" Another scholarly cultivator said. Meng Cheng's face revealed an indescribable expression as he coldly said, "Two brothers, this old man doesn't know what cultivation Xiong Yi is at, but this old man knows that the Daoist master Qing Shu is already at the late nascent soul stage. He only needs a little bit of luck to step into the leaving aperture stage of the 5th level of origin force. How can he be ranked at the 90th place?" "So," Murong Jiang said in a deep voice, "are the 80 Fortune Gate's disciples in front of Daoist master Qing Shu all at the late nascent soul stage?" Murong Jiang's gaze swept over Xiao Hua. He knew that if he directly asked Xiao Hua, he would naturally know the answer. Unfortunately, he had already seen Xiao Hua's gradually revealing ferocity. Not to mention him, even if all the scholarly cultivators present stood up and asked Xiao Hua a question, who would dare to say a word? "This old man knows," Gongshu Jingye said, "because Xiong Yi, Li Xiong, and Prince Lan are the Fortune Gate's commanders. They are ranked at the very front." How much does the Fortune Gate occupy on the Yellow Bulletin?" Duanmu Lianheng asked in a daze. Chapter 4489. "Brother Duanmu, can't you see for yourself?" Meng Cheng asked indifferently. "It's easy to recognize. The entire yellow board is filled with Fortune Gate disciples. Other than the 9 Grand Mist ancestors' subordinates, the other 351 names are all Fortune Gate disciples. Is there any meaning to this yellow board?" Gongshu Jingye looked at Xiao Hua's back with a complicated gaze. He was a little absent-minded. Does the mysterious yellow board dare to attack these Fortune Gate disciples? After saying that, Gongshu Jingye closed his mouth. The crazed atmosphere disappeared. Everyone held their breaths as they looked at the profound board. The vortex in the sky was spinning more and more violently. The inside of the vortex was like a lightning pool, with thousands of lightning bolts wreaking havoc, and thousands of chains dancing in the air. "It's coming, it's coming." An excited female disciple screamed, pointing at one of the outer vortexes. Sure enough, there was a black star that was much bigger than before. This black star was in the shape of a dragon, and the starlight trailing behind it was like a dragon's tail. Boom! After the black light passed, one of the inscription chains was destroyed, and the last name on the profound board was shattered. When the blood-red clouds flashed, another blood-red name appeared. Fortune Gate's Lu Zhan. Wow! Everyone was looking forward to this result, but when they saw this result, they couldn't help but cry out. How is this possible? This Fortune Gate's commander is just a mid-nascent soul realm cultivator. How can their disciple reach the out-of-aperture realm? However, after the first wave of clamor, everyone's gaze involuntarily fell on Yuan Ya. Yuan Ya claimed to be a Fortune Gate disciple, and his strength was obviously not inferior to a peak 7th grade origin energy martial grandmaster. Since Yuan Ya was in front, this illusion being ranked last on the profound board was nothing, right? After everyone looked at Yuan Ya, everyone, including the scholarly cultivator family's martial grandmasters, looked at Xiao Hua. A common question arose in their hearts. Since Yuan Ya was a 7th grade origin energy martial grandmaster, then, as Yuan Ya's master, Xiao Hua's strength, what was his cultivation level? What was the 8th grade origin energy martial grandmaster's cultivation level? Could it be 9th grade origin energy martial grandmaster? Xiao Hua's mood was different from others. Other than pride, there was only pride in his heart. In the past, he was merely the yellow list's first place, but now, Lu Zhan, a Fortune Gates disciple whom he didn't even know about, could be ranked on the profound list. Woo, woo. Following that, more and more profound stars flew out from the vortex, breaking everyone's astonishment again and again. Unsurprisingly, all the profound stars that entered the profound list were Fortune Gates disciples. Each and every one of their names lit up the Fortune Gates morning sun like a blazing sun. The brilliance of the scorching sun tore apart the Xian bulletin and occupied nearly 60% of the positions. The updating of the Xian ranking was somewhat different from that of the Huang ranking. Most of the time, names were updated one after another, unlike the Huang ranking. Sometimes, a group of names would be updated, and when the top 20 names began to dim, the entire vortex would stop, as if something was brewing. In contrast to the vortex, the entire space fell silent once again. No one was even willing to breathe loudly. Although they still had a shocking idea in their hearts, they still did not dare to believe it and waited quietly for the Bound of Universe token to be revealed. Wang, wang. The vortex finally moved, and a huge profound star flew out from the vortex. The lightning and chains were shattered by this profound star. The profound star streaked across the space, creating a rumbling sound that shook the entire space. The profound dragons surrounding the profound list were somewhat uneasy, and they struggled with all their might, wanting to rush out of the profound list. Boom! The profound star fell, shattering the 20th name, and Fortune Gates Fujiwen's name was written on it. Ah! Fujiwen! Did the profound yellow list make a mistake? Within the halo, a middle-aged man couldn't help but shout, or maybe it's someone with the same name. My Fu family's Fujiwen should be a Confucian cultivator. How can he be ranked on the profound yellow list? Brother Fu? Don't worry. An old man next to him laughed and said, this is definitely not your Fu family's Fujiwen. Those who can be ranked on the profound list are all Daoist cultivators, and all of them are above the 5th grade of origin energy. I've seen your Fujiwen before. Although he has some aptitude, it's impossible for him to cultivate to the 5th grade of origin energy in 300 years. Oh, right, I haven't seen Fujiwen for a long time. Which Confucian did he become a disciple of? The middle-aged man laughed and said, I'm not sure about that. Not to mention Fujiwen, I haven't seen him for nearly 200 years. Even his parents seemed to have suddenly disappeared. I haven't seen him for many years. The two men's voices weren't loud, but Xiao Hua heard them clearly. Xiao Hua frowned as he looked at the profound list. He somewhat understood. Just as Meng Cheng said, Fujiwen's cultivation was one of the best among the Fortune Gates disciples, but he didn't have any descendants. His power on the Shenhua continent was far from the Yu family and Liu family, so he was only qualified to be ranked at the bottom of the profound list. That's not right. Xiao Hua looked at Yuanya beside him and said inwardly, Yuanya is a loner, and his strength can't be compared to Fujiwen. How can he be ranked above Fujiwen? Oh, I understand. The Immortal Palace must have fought with Fujiwen and the others to create this list. Yuanya has always been in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, so his name probably isn't on the profound list. While Xiao Hua was pondering, another black star flew out from his mouth and landed on the profound list. The 18th name shattered, and in a split second, it was revealed to the left of the 57th name, and that 57th name was not a Fortune Gate disciple. Fortune Gate's Wang Biafei. Although they knew that this Xian star was most likely a Fortune Gate's disciple, some of the Confucian cultivators on the star couldn't help but exclaim. Even star-picking Lu's Nan Huayue stole a glance at Xiao Hua and asked in a low voice, Senior Xiao, are these two seniors really your disciples? Xiao Hua didn't hide anything and nodded. He then looked at Mo Jianli and said with a smile, they're the same as Mo Jianli, but this old man hasn't mentioned it to him yet, so I don't know if he's willing. Mo Jianli had long been fascinated by this scene. He really couldn't believe that the Dao Gates cultivator, who was only a low 4th grade origin Qi cultivator, was now the sect master of a Dao Gates sect. Moreover, This Tao Gate's disciple had almost completely refreshed the profound yellow list that the Confucian cultivators were so proud of. What was even more unbelievable was that he had actually become a member of this terrifying sect. Now that he heard Xiao Hua mention him, Mo Jianli hurriedly bowed and said, "Senior's gift really makes this junior fearful. It's this junior's honor to be able to enter the fortune gate." "Good." Xiao Hua nodded. "As long as you're willing, this profound yellow list will have your name on it sooner or later." Nan Huayue pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Senior Xiao, you've said before that this profound yellow list is the Confucian cultivators' hunting list. What's there to be proud of about being on this list?" Xiao Hua's eyes were like stars as he looked at the profound yellow list high in the sky and said with a smile, "That was in the past. Today, my Fortune Gate's disciple is on the profound yellow list. In the future, this profound yellow list will become the heroes list of the 3 continent." Xiao Hua's words were quite heroic. If others heard it, they would inevitably think that Xiao Hua was bragging. However, in Nan Huayue's ears, it was so natural. She didn't doubt that the appearance of the Fortune Gate would definitely fulfill Xiao Hua's word. Boom! While they were talking, another profound star flew out and shattered the 15th blood-colored name. The blood-colored name flew to the 50th place and reformed. Fortune Gate's Yuan Ya. When Yuan Ya's name appeared, tens of thousands of eyes fell on the bare-handed Yuan Ya, and noisy discussions rose again. This is Yuan Ya. He's really powerful to be able to be ranked 15th on the profound list. The strength of the Tao Gate's cultivators on this year's profound list is too abnormal. Peak 7th grade origin force is actually only ranked 15th. I remember that 400 years ago, the first place on the profound list was only at 6th grade origin force. The powerful one is the Fortune Gate. Another voice said, within the profound list's top 20, there are already 3 Fortune Gate's disciples. I wonder how many of their disciples will be able to enter the profound list. Looking at Yuan Ya again, although he was the center of attention, these gazes were nothing in his eyes. He simply didn't care about what others saw and only paid attention to Duanmu Lianheng in the distance. He didn't even glance at his own name appearing on the profound list. As for Duanmu Lianheng, he felt bitter in his mouth. Although he knew that Yuan Ya wouldn't make a sneak attack, he didn't dare to be distracted when facing such an opponent. He could only look at the profound yellow list while being vigilant against Yuan Ya. At this moment, he was already somewhat regretful. The current Fortune Gate, not to mention him, even the Duanmu family couldn't be its opponent. Why was he so obsessed at that time to listen to Duanmu Qing's bewitchment? Of course, Duanmu Lianheng's heart was filled with despair because he wasn't the only one who was obsessed. The Duanmu family's absolute kill order was the real reason why the Duanmu family might be annihilated by the Fortune Gate. What other Fortune Gate's disciples are there before Yuan Ya? A series of questions arose in the hearts of the crowd. Everyone's gaze shifted from Yuan Ya's calm face to the vortex. Woo! Another profound star appeared and fell into the 11th position. A blood-red name appeared, Fortune Gate's Shen Songzi. Shen Songzi? Xiao Hua was also stunned, and the strangeness in his eyes became even stronger. Because other than protecting Zhai Xingzi and the others in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, Xiao Hua had never let Shen Songzi fight. Xiao Hua couldn't imagine how the profound Yellow Order knew Shen Songzi's strength. Moreover, its evaluation of Shen Songzi's strength was also so objective. Could it be that His Highness Lan has led the Fortune Gate's disciples back to the hidden immortal mainland? How is that possible? At this moment, a scholarly disciple exclaimed, "I know this Shen Songzi. When he was still a Golden Core Realm cultivator, he even tried to befriend me. How many years has it been? How could he surpass 7th grade essence force? P.S. 3 chapters at noon, no updates at night." Chapter 4490. That's right, that's right. As soon as the Confucian cultivator opened his mouth, more than 10 Confucian cultivators who knew Shen Songzi also shouted, "We also know Shen Songzi. It's impossible for him to be on the Shen ranking, let alone be ranked 11th. Miss Nan." Murong Jiang takes a deep breath, suppressing the incomparable horror in his heart, and raises his voice to ask, Can your Zhai Xinglu be sure that this mysterious yellow list is the one issued by the mysterious yellow order? Junior can guarantee it. Nan Huayue answered without hesitation. This is the profound yellow proclamation issued by the profound yellow order to the entire hidden immortal continent. If Senior Murong doesn't believe me, you can send a message to the Murong family. If any of the names on the profound yellow proclamation are correct, Zhai Xinglu will return 10 times the source stones. Yen, that's not necessary. Murong Jiang waved his hand and said, I just feel that this profound yellow proclamation has a strange feeling. To be honest, I've lived for so long, but I've never seen such a strange thing. Gongshu Jingye's mood was better than all the other Confucian cultivator families. He clearly remembered that a few hours ago, Xiao Hua gave the 5-brocade cloud painting to Gongshu Isin and Gongshu Yiming in front of him, and said that he would accept them as his disciples. With this sentence, the Gongshu family had a close relationship with the Fortune Gate. No matter how the 100 schools of thought treated the Fortune Gate, the Gongshu family could advance and retreat freely. Now that he heard Murong Jiang's words, he smiled and said, there's no need to be afraid of the profound yellow proclamation's authenticity. Now that we're in the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm, it's too troublesome to send a message to the family. When we reach the Chidi River, we'll meet the 4 great families. At that time, we'll just have to ask and we'll know. Indeed. Murong Jiang smiled bitterly. He also understood in his heart that with Zhai Xinglu's ability, how could they make a mistake? Woo! Then, without any suspense, the name Fortune Gate's Daoist Jingting appeared in the 10th place. Daoist Jingting was a famous nascent soul cultivator on the hidden immortal continent, and many Confucian cultivators knew him. Suddenly, Xiao Hua thought, the Golden Condor and White Lion's strength is quite good, why aren't they on the profound yellow proclamation? Woo! At this time, another profound star appeared on the profound proclamation, Chang Yuan. She was ranked 8th. Chang Yuan? How could this be? This is my Chang family's. Chang Yuan? A slightly hoarse voice sounded. Everyone looked inside the halo. An old man with white hair and beard couldn't believe his eyes. He stared at the Xian board and exclaimed, I remember more than 200 years ago, she seemed to have become a disciple of a Confucian cultivator. Naturally, no one would believe the old man's words because the old man was just a borderline master. If he wasn't the leader of an aristocratic family, he definitely wouldn't have the qualifications to sit together with Murong Jiang and the other great grandmasters. Some of the Confucian cultivators who knew the Chang family snorted at the old man's words. How could a 7th-grade Confucian family have a Daoist disciple who was ranked in the top 10 of the profound ranking? Seeing that the people around him didn't believe him, the old man didn't dare to say anything more. He only looked in the other direction and saw that the Fu clan's disciple also had doubts in his eyes. He stared at the Xian ranking and waited. Woo! Another Xian star followed closely behind, and with a boom, it shattered the 7th name, and then the name Fortune Gates Yu Zhongquan appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Not bad, not bad. This must be my Chang family's Chang Yuan. The previously doubtful Chang family's old man shouted excitedly. Back then, Chang Yuan and Yu Zhongquan were engaged. If there were people with the same name in this world, there could be one Chang Yuan, but it's impossible for both of them to have the same name. That's right. The Fu clan's Confucian cultivator also shouted, I also think it's impossible. That Fujiwen must be my Fu clan's Fujiwen. Although the profound yellow board was a hunting list, in their eyes, it was also a kind of glory. Fu clan, Chang clan, and the Yu clan who had yet to come to the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm, when could they be so conspicuous in front of other aristocratic families? Although the Fu clan and Chang clan knew that only Xiao Hua knew the truth, who would dare to ask him? The 2 Confucian cultivators spoke so loudly, their intention to beat around the bush was self-evident. Xiao Hua didn't care about the 2 aristocratic families. In the past, Yu Zhongquan, Chang Yuan, and Fujiwen weren't valued much in his family. Since they had entered the Fortune Gate, they had already separated from his family. Xiao Hua looked at the profound board and nodded inwardly. This profound yellow board is quite interesting. It actually detected that Yu Zhongquan and Chang Yuan are husband and wife in such a short time. Among the hundreds of thousands of Fortune Gate disciples, there are indeed many of their descendants. Even 30% of the people on the profound board are their disciples. It makes sense for them to be ranked before Fujiwen and Yuanya. Moreover, from the looks of it, among the disciples I arranged, other than Liu Yi and Jiang Hong, most of them have also appeared. There are also some disciples who are stronger than them, either Confucian cultivators or Buddhist cultivators. They usually don't make a move, so the profound yellow board probably didn't detect them in a hurry. Woo-woo. 2 more profound star board names appeared, falling to the 4th and 5th place. Above them were Fortune Gates Liu Yi and Fortune Gates Jiang Hong. Boom. The crowd of Confucian cultivators went crazy again. The Fortune Gates disciples had almost completely dominated the profound board. On the profound board, 60% of the 160 positions were also occupied by the Fortune Gates disciples. Only 10% belonged to the Grand Mist Ancestors' forces, and the remaining 30% were Dao Gates secluded cultivators. As for the top 20 positions, other than the top 3, the Fortune Gates disciples occupied more than half of the 17 positions. Although the crowd was already prepared, they were still shocked by this unbelievable list. The discussions stopped when the last Shen star appeared. Under the starry sky, there was complete silence. Everyone's eyes were fixed on this Shen star. Although this Shen star didn't look any different from the other Shen stars, when it fell into the vortex, it was extremely heavy. It was as if the arrival of this profound star signified the arrival of an era, and the fall of this profound star signified the end of an era. The profound star shot straight to the top of the profound board, and there was no surprise. Tens of thousands of pairs of eyes lit up as they wanted to witness this moment. Boom! With a loud rumble, the profound board shone brightly, and the color of blood overflowed. The words Fortune Gates Xiao Hua appeared at the top of the profound board. Whether it was the Great Desolate Mountains Grand Mist Ancestor, Liang Hui Ridge's Daoist Rider, or even the Burning Glaze Pools and Yezi, all of them turned into fragments and moved to the bottom of the profound board's first place. It's really the profound board's first place. Murong Jiang blurted out. Xiao. Daoist Xiao actually has this kind of strength. Gongshu Jingyi growled. Daoist Xiao actually surpassed the legendary Grand Mist Ancestor? Could it be that his strength is even more powerful than the Grand Mist Ancestor? Meng Cheng explained with a smile, Daoist Xiao may not be as strong as the Grand Mist Ancestor, but his fortune gate is too powerful, so he occupies the first place of the profound board. Boom, boom, boom. While everyone was discussing, a loud rumble of thunder came from the profound board. The profound board, which was originally overflowing with auspicious qi and covered by rosy clouds, suddenly burst open. Strands of golden light shot out like spider silk towards the 5 words Fortune Gates Xiao Hua. As soon as the golden light appeared, the 5 words immediately shattered. Every stroke of the 5 inscriptions turned into dozens of thunderbolts, and with overwhelming power, they rushed towards the whirlpool. Wherever the thunderbolts passed, whether it was the 5 qi righteous lightning or the inscription chains, everything was swept away. When the thunderbolts fell into the whirlpool, the entire whirlpool collapsed. Countless black and white lights flickered, and a terrifying aura rushed out from the collapsing whirlpool. Sigh, Xiao Hua, isn't it just a profound yellow board? How did you make such a big commotion? A sweet voice came from the starry sky, and then hundreds of flowers bloomed and rushed into the collapsing whirlpool. In just a moment, the entire transmission channel began to slowly disappear. When Xiao Hua heard Fairy Xing Yu's words, he shrugged helplessly and said with a smile, "This has nothing to do with me. I'm just watching from the side." Puff. When the starry sky regained its calm, another ray of moonlight rushed out from the full moon and landed on the shattered profound board. Like a broken mirror, the shattered pieces were instantly restored. At this time, the Grand Mist Ancestor and the other 2 were still in front of the profound board. The whole place was silent, and no one dared to speak. No one knew what had happened. Even the strong scholars like Murong Jiang and Gongshu Jingye didn't know why Xiao Hua's name couldn't be written on the profound yellow board. Senior Xiao. Duanmu Lianheng's thoughts turned rapidly, and he hurriedly said in the silence, "My Duanmu family was deceived by the side-branch disciple Duanmu Qing and offended Senior. Junior apologizes to Senior on behalf of my Duanmu family." With that, Duanmu Lianheng bowed respectfully. Seeing the arrogant Duanmu Lianheng apologize in front of all the scholarly cultivator families, Xiao Hua's heart softened. Thinking about his fate with the Duanmu family, some of the reasons were related to him falling into the devil path, so he couldn't completely blame the Duanmu family. As for Duanmu Liangsheng, Xiao Hua no longer had any resentment after coming out of the misty mountain maze formation. Thus, he waved his hand and said, "Forget it. The so-called scholarly cultivator families should prioritize etiquette and restrain their disciples. Don't bully others with your power, especially the common people. They don't even have the strength to truss a chicken. If you don't have the self-restraint of a scholarly cultivator, how can they be willing to submit to you? In the long run, scholarly cultivators will lose their original intention." Yes, Junior understands. Although Duanmu Lianheng was arrogant and dared to destroy Nanwu Great Merciful Guanin's golden statue, he knew his own limits. Although Xiao Hua's current strength seemed to be around the 5th grade, he was able to suppress the Grand Mist Ancestor and become the first on the Profound board. How could Xiao Hua's cultivation be something he could reach? Hearing Xiao Hua's words, he was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "Junior will send a disciple back to the family and remove that damn absolute kill order." Chapter 4491. That won't be necessary. You might as well use that dictum of death as a lesson, Xiao Hua said with a smile, looking at Duanmu Lianheng with interest. Duanmu Lianheng was stunned. At first, he didn't understand. After all, with the existence of the dictum of death, the Duanmu family and the Fortune Gate were enemies. The Duanmu family might not care about Xiao Hua, but they were afraid of the Fortune Gate. However, a moment later, Duanmu Lianheng's heart trembled. He immediately understood Xiao Hua's meaning, because Xiao Hua didn't care about the Duanmu family's dictum of death, even if he was facing the Duanmu family's patriarch, Duanmu Tianji. Where did Xiao Hua get his courage from? Not only because of the Fortune Gate in Xiao Hua's hands, but also because of Xiao Hua's own strength. The Duanmu family's patriarch was at least a literature star. If Xiao Hua didn't care, then Xiao Hua's strength was definitely at 9th grade essence force. Realizing Xiao Hua's true strength, Duanmu Lianheng's face heated up. He knew that this was Xiao Hua's punishment for the Duanmu family. After all, no matter how powerful the Duanmu family was, they were a first-class family. Throughout the history of Confucian cultivators, there had never been a Confucian family that dared to issue a dictum of death to a 9th grade essence force cultivator. Since the Duanmu family dared to do something that no one dared to do, from today onwards, anyone who mentioned the Duanmu family's dictum of death would naturally treat it as the Duanmu family's humiliation. Senior knows. Duanmu Lianheng said respectfully, "Junior doesn't dare to make a decision on this matter. After we reach the Star Moon Palace, Junior will ask the Patriarch to personally make a decision." "All right." Xiao Hua had no intention of arguing with Duanmu Lianheng and casually waved his hand. "Many thanks, Senior." Duanmu Lianheng hurriedly retreated, not daring to say anything more. As for Duanmu Qing, whose dantian had already been shattered by Yuan Ya, needless to say, the Duanmu family definitely wouldn't dare to let her live. "Senior." Duanmu Lianheng had just retreated when Murong Jiang flew out again. He bowed and said, "This junior also offended you that day. Since brother Duanmu has asked for forgiveness, this junior will also ask for forgiveness." In Xiao Hua's eyes, Duanmu Lianheng and Murong Jiang were slightly different. Xiao Hua didn't like Murong Jiang's schemes. He glanced at Yuan Ya. He said, "Ya, give him a punch his teat. Don't kill him." "Yes, master." Receiving the order, without demur, Yuan Ya waved his right hand, and his fist shot out like a meteor. Murong Jiang knew that this was the end of the karma of the day when he had punched Xiao Hua in front of the god and devil's blood pool. He was secretly happy in his heart, and hastily urged his true chi to resist. Boom! Yuan Ya's fist hit Murong Jiang and a soft rumbling sound was heard. Although Murong Jiang had already resisted, but his defensive Zhen Qi was still crushed by the fist with irresistible force. A strange aura, which seemed to be the nemesis of righteous Qi, invaded Murong Jiang's body. In particular, Yuan Ya's fist carried a kind of invincible power, and Murong Jiang's body was sent flying far away like a pebble. A moment later, Murong Jiang's complexion turned pale, and he flew back in a somewhat sorry state. Xiao Hua nodded and said, "The grudges between you and me can be considered settled. There's no need to mention it again in the future. However, this Xiao still wants to remind you that no one in this world is much smarter than another. You might be able to scheme for a while, but you won't be able to scheme for a lifetime. Any scheme will be exposed sooner or later." "Yes, this junior understands." Murong Jiang didn't dare to say too much. While suppressing his injuries, he replied, "All right, Miss Nan." Xiao Hua turned to Nan Huayue and said, "This Xiao is going to see the palace master. Send me there. Senior, please." Nan Huayue respectfully raised her hand and pointed. The full moon once again overflowed with moonlight. Xiao Hua nodded and said to Mo Jianli, "You and Yuan Ya, come with this old man." "Yes, senior." Mo Jianli respectfully replied, but Yuan Ya didn't utter a word. He followed Xiao Hua into the full moon, and when Mo Jianli also stepped into the full moon, the entire challenge starry sky suddenly became a boiling cauldron of voices. All the Confucian cultivators had gone crazy. They all talked at once, and everyone had a kind of excitement. That's right. How many Confucian cultivators on the hidden immortal continent could see such a grand scene with their own eyes? Not to mention the Confucian cultivators of the star-picking tower, even the entire hidden immortal continent went crazy. Today's update of the mysterious yellow list was a special event for the Fortune Gates disciples. The Fortune Gates disciples were like stars, illuminating the entire hidden immortal continent. After the time it took to eat a meal, the entire space gradually calmed down. Nan Huayue said with a smile on her face, "Seniors, let bygones be bygones. The challenge starry sky is just a competition. There are many more to come." Sigh. Meng Cheng sighed and said, "Back then, when this old man recited the ancient saying there is a scenery before my eyes, but I can't see the way, Kui Hao wrote a poem on it, I always felt that it wasn't good enough. Now that I've seen Daoist Master Xiao's generosity, our so-called challenge starry sky is really insignificant. Why do we have to mention it again? This time, it's fine if we don't compete." Nan Huayue nodded and said, "If that's the case, then this junior will make it clear. Although seniors don't plan to continue the challenge starry sky, the source stones that seniors paid, forget it, forget it. Don't mention those vulgar things again." Meng Cheng waved his hand and said, "If the source stones aren't refunded, then so be it." "Thank you so much, Senior Meng." Nan Huayue replied with a smile. However, before she could finish, Gongshu Jingyi's heart stirred again and he said, "Miss Nan, this old man knows that your Zhai Xinglu possesses many secrets of the 3 continents. There are even many that were lost by my 100 schools of thought. How about this, we won't refund the source stones for the challenge starry sky. You only need to tell us why Daoist Master Xiao's name can't be written on the profound proclamation." "This." Nan Huayue hesitated and said, "This junior doesn't know if this is possible. Please wait a moment." Soon after, Nan Huayue fell into the full moon and disappeared. She only reappeared after the time it took to finish a meal. There seemed to be nothing out of the ordinary from her calm face, but the wisp of surprise revealed in her pair of bright eyes explained the shock of the news. "Miss Nan," Gongshu Jingyi asked in a deep voice, "can Zhai Xinglu give us an answer?" Nan Huayue nodded and said, "My Zhai Xinglu does have records of this. However, does seniors agree with seniors' decision?" "This old man agrees," Murong Jiang said without hesitation. Although he knew in his heart that as long as he returned to the Murong family, he would definitely know the reason, but how could he wait until then? Curiosity killed the cat not only for female cultivators, but when men wanted to know secrets, their hearts would itch to the point of being scratched by a cat. Seeing that Murong Jiang and Gongshu Jingyi both agreed, the other families also agreed. Their eyes were full of desire, and they stared at Nan Huayue as if they were cats looking at meat. Nan Huayue's gaze swept across the entire starry sky, then looked at the profound yellow proclamation that was still suspended high in the sky, flashing with blood-red light. She took a deep breath and said, "According to my Zhai Xinglu's records, the profound yellow proclamation is an imperial tool built with the fate of Confucian cultivators and the order of heaven and earth as its foundation. As long as a cultivator's name is written on it, The cultivator's strength must be lower than the Confucian cultivator who refined the imperial tool. Otherwise, the cultivator's name won't be written on the profound yellow proclamation. How is that possible? Meng Cheng exclaimed. It said that the profound yellow proclamation was personally refined by the Ziwei immortal emperor in ancient times. Could it be that Zhenren Xiao's strength has surpassed the Ziwei immortal emperor's? If he had surpassed the Ziwei immortal emperor, he would have already ascended to heaven, right? Murong Jiang also held back his injuries and exclaimed, "Seniors, this junior doesn't know." Nan Huayue smiled apologetically. "This is my Zhai Xinglu's record. If Senior Xiao can't enter the profound proclamation, it's probably the reason." Then, Gongshu Jingyi asked again, "Who refined the profound yellow proclamation? Does your Zhai Xinglu have a record of it? We can buy this information with Primeval stones." "Senior, I'm sorry to disappoint you. This junior has just checked. My Zhai Xinglu has no record of this." Nan Huayue understood Gongshu Jingyi's mood and hurriedly replied, "Alas, all right." Gongshu Jingyi waved his hand and sighed, "Thank you for your trouble, Miss Nan. I wouldn't dare. If seniors don't have any orders, this junior will return now," Nan Huayue respectfully said as she stood quietly in the air. After a while, Murong Jiang asked again, "Daoist Xiao, is he also going to enter the Star Moon Palace?" "Sorry, this junior doesn't know." Nan Huayue smiled and shook her head. "All right, you can go now." Gongshu Jingyi waved his hand. "Many thanks, seniors." Just as Nan Huayue was about to turn around, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. She tilted her head and listened for a moment before a smile appeared on her face. She bowed to the group of Confucian cultivators and said, "Junior is under orders to reveal some information about the Fortune Gate to seniors. If seniors are willing, quickly say it. How many Primeval stones?" Murong Jiang asked without hesitation. "Brother Murong, don't be anxious." Gongshu Jingyi smiled and said, "We will first discuss with the Zhai Xinglu. This information is actually outdated and has no value. If we are not anxious, we can wait until we return to the hidden immortal continent to know." Gongshu Jingyi looked at Nan Huayue and said with a smile, "Miss Nan, don't you agree?" Nan Huayue smiled and said, "Senior is right, but also wrong. Because a lot of this information is unique to my Zhai Xinglu. No one on the hidden immortal continent will have the chance to hear it." "All right. We will discuss it first." Meng Cheng and the others naturally understood the meaning behind Nan Huayue's words. Xiao Hua was inside the Zhai Xinglu. Who would know more about the Fortune Gate than Xiao Hua? After a short discussion, Meng Cheng said a few words to Nan Huayue through voice transmission. Nan Huayue nodded, and after the various families took out a considerable amount of Primeval stones, Nan Huayue respectfully handed a jade eye to Meng Cheng. Meng Cheng received the jade eye and scanned it with his divine sense. His face paled as he exclaimed, This, how is this possible? Senior Meng, nothing is impossible." Nan Huayue smiled and said, "Otherwise, how could the Fortune Gate's disciples clean the entire mysterious yellow list?" "Brother Meng," Murong Jiang called out, "what is inside? Why are you so shocked?" Chapter 4492. "Brother Meng, recite it quickly." Gongshu Jingyi was getting impatient. This old man also wants to know what kind of earth-shattering event these 100 Fortune Gate disciples with cultivation of 5th grade and above and several hundred nascent soul disciples with cultivation of 4th grade and above have done. Several hundred nascent soul disciples? Meng Cheng sneered, "You underestimate the Fortune Gate too much. They have more than several hundred nascent soul disciples. How can there be so many?" Gongshu Jingyi sucked in a breath of cold air and exclaimed, Could it be that they have several thousand nascent soul disciples? That's impossible." Murong Jiang refused to believe it. How could the Immortal Palace allow the Fortune Gate to nurture so many nascent soul disciples? Meng Cheng smiled faintly and recited, "The Immortal Palace has dispatched the Lunar Temple's great General Sun Ji to lead 500,000 immortal soldiers to attack the soaring Dragon Mountain range of the hidden immortal mainlands Uprovin. The immortal soldiers laid down an inescapable formation to trap the soaring Dragon Mountain range. However, Not only was the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's defensive formation powerful, it was also too large. The inescapable formation was unable to completely trap it. The soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate resisted the immortal soldiers for more than a year. Later, Sun Ji invited the Immortal Palace's 64 constellations to descend to the lower realm and lay down a constellation formation to tear apart the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's defensive formation, revealing the Fortune Gate's true identity. Although the Fortune Gate's young lord Li Xiong was only a mid-nascent soul cultivator, there were close to 1 million Fortune Gate disciples in the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, and there were 5,000 Golden Core disciples. The million Fortune Gate disciples were fearless as they faced the Immortal Palace's immortal soldiers head-on. Great General Sun Ji was shocked. Ever since the Dao extinction era, there had never been a Dao sect on the hidden immortal mainland, not to mention a sect with 1 million disciples. The soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate had crossed the Immortal Palace's bottom line. Great General Sun Ji led 500,000 immortal soldiers and generals, and with the assistance of the 64 constellations, he prepared to battle the Fortune Gate's million disciples, intending to annihilate them all. But at this time, Fortune Gate's Fujiwen appeared with several thousand disciples. Fujiwen was a Confucian cultivator who had refined his soul back to the void. His strength was close to mid-7th grade, and his 5,000 disciples, most of their names were unknown. Great General Sun was alarmed. Half of the 64 constellations were sent to meet Fujiwen. Unexpectedly, before the two armies clashed, Fortune Gate's Wang Bianfei arrived with several thousand disciples. Wang Bianfei, a Confucian cultivator, a grandmaster who had refined his spirit to return to the void. His strength was close to the upper 7th grade of elemental energy. His 5,000 disciples were all around the 4th or 5th grade of elemental energy. Most of their names were unknown. 64 lunar mansions were shocked. The other half broke away from Great General Sun Ji's command and faced Wang Bianfei head-on. At this time, the advantage of the Immortal Palace's punitive army was gone. Once the war started, the 500,000 immortal soldiers could not escape. The immortal generals were filled with righteousness. Just as they were about to die, they heard the sound of the bugle horn and were overjoyed. However, more reinforcements arrived. It was the Fortune Gate's Yu Zhongquan, Chang Yuan, and several thousand Fortune Gate disciples. Yu Zhongquan, a Confucian sword cultivator, descendant of the 7th grade aristocratic family Yu clan in Ifeng country of hidden immortal continents Yu province. His strength was close to the middle of the 7th grade of origin energy. Chang Yuan, a Confucian sword cultivator, descendant of the 7th grade aristocratic family Chang clan in Xin country of hidden immortal continents Yu province. Her strength was close to the middle of the 7th grade of origin energy. The 5,000 disciples he led were all around grade 4 or 5, and most of them had the surname Yu. Because of this, Great General Sun Ji and the 64 lunar mansions trembled, not daring to fight. Fortune Gate's Fujiwen spat out a heavenly scripture scroll and activated the Fortune Gate's defensive formation, trapping the 500,000 immortal soldiers. The battle situation is unknown, but the Lunar Temple's immortal generals and 64 lunar mansions were captured. The 500,000 immortal soldiers and 64 lunar mansion soldiers were unharmed and returned to the Immortal Palace. The soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate's defensive formation was activated again, but no one knows the details. Under the starry sky, Meng Cheng's cadence as he recited. Everyone's emotions were also fluctuating. Although the jade pupil didn't record much, everyone could imagine the strangeness of the situation. Lunar Temple's Great General Sun Ji and the 64 Lunar Mansion soldiers definitely didn't expect the Fortune Gate to have so many high-grade disciples return, instantly equalizing the disadvantageous situation. What was special was that they didn't lose a single soldier in the battle. The Lunar Temple soldiers and the Lunar Mansion soldiers were released by the Fortune Gate disciples, as if the Fortune Gate disciples weren't worried about the Immortal Palace's punitive expedition again. Ari, no wonder Brother Meng is so surprised. Gongshu Jingye sighed. Tens of thousands of nascent soul cultivators suddenly appeared. Even Great General Sun Ji would panic. Yeah, after the battle at the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, The Fortune Gate's name shook the entire Yu prefecture. Their name shook the entire hidden immortal continent. Murong Jiang nodded in agreement. In the Heavenly Paradise River's Azure prefecture, the Dragon Clan's Jiang Sheng led 2,000 water tribe members to patrol the Heavenly Paradise River. They were ambushed by the Heavenly Rainbow Stream's Ao Shi. Jiang Sheng sent a message, and the Heavenly Paradise River's Dragon Clan led 30,000 water tribe members to rescue them. Unexpectedly, the Heavenly Rainbow Stream's Dragon Clan set up another trap and sent 100,000 water tribe members to besiege them. In the battle, the Heavenly Paradise River's Dragon Clan gradually showed signs of defeat. At this time, the Fortune Gate's Liu Yi and Jiang Hong led over 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples back. Liu Yi was a Dao Gate's body integration cultivator. His origin was unknown, but he became a disciple of Xiao Hua at the Longevity Town over 200 years ago. His strength was close to the middle of the 7th grade. Jiang Hong was the Heavenly Paradise River's Dragon Clan's princess, and her strength was close to the upper 7th grade. The 100,000 disciples they led were all around the 4th or 5th grade. Half of them had the surname Liu, and they were extremely strong. They were suspected to be descendants of the Dragon Clan. When the Fortune Gate disciples came out, the Heavenly Paradise River was dyed red with blood. None of the 100,000 water tribe members of the Heavenly Rainbow Stream managed to escape. Later, Jiang Hong led the Heavenly Rainbow Stream and killed 350,000 water tribe members. The Heavenly Rainbow Stream was removed from the Three Rivers Prefecture. Gongshu Jingye was dumbfounded, and he was speechless for a long time. After a while, he asked again, "Brother Meng, you didn't misread, right? 10,000 Fortune Gate disciples with 4th or 5th grade origin energy." "That's right." Meng Cheng nodded. "Moreover, half of these disciples are descendants of the Dragon Clan. Is the Fortune Gate invincible?" Duanmu Lianheng was in a daze. Not to mention the various families' martial grandmasters, all the Confucian cultivators present were speechless. When they saw the change of the mysterious yellow list earlier, they felt that it was exciting and interesting. Now, after hearing Zhai Xinglu's news, they finally understood how terrifying the Fortune Gate was. These 100,000 disciples could easily wipe out all the Confucian cultivators below the 3rd grade aristocratic family from the hidden immortal mainland. "Don't be anxious, don't be anxious." Meng Cheng said unhurriedly. Liu Yi and Jiang Hong led the 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples out of the Southern Sea. According to the reliable news from the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, the Southern Sea Dragon Palace's first prince, second prince, third prince, and fourth prince were all killed. The Southern Sea Dragon Palace's Four Seas Grand Formation was broken, and the Southern Sea Dragon Palace was split in half. No! Impossible! All the Confucian cultivators were petrified. No one had thought that the arrogant Four Seas Dragon Palace that looked down on both the human and demonic beast clans would be harmed by the Fortune Gate's disciples. After half a cup of tea's time, Murong Jiang raised his head and asked Nan Huayue, "Miss Nan, this news, Junior doesn't know." Nan Huayue had already prepared an excuse. "Moreover, my star-picking tower won't verify this reliable news. If Senior Murong is interested, you can come to the Southern Sea Dragon Palace to take a look." Damn it, unless I don't want to live anymore. Murong Jiang couldn't help but curse. That's right, unless they don't want to live anymore, who would think of provoking the Fortune Gate? The tens of thousands of Confucian cultivators present all had the same thought in their minds. Also, Meng Cheng opened his mouth again. "What? Also? What else?" Gongshu Jingyi exclaimed. "Other than splitting the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, did the Fortune Gate? Did they cause trouble in the Immortal Palace?" "No, they didn't." Meng Cheng smiled. "Brother Gongshu, did you forget that Bai Qingyu of the Thousand Beasts Sacred Ground had once suppressed Daoist Xiao?" "Granduncle." At this time, Gongshu Isin, who was on a star, hurriedly called out, "When was Daoist Xiao suppressed by the demonic beast clan?" "Boy, how come you don't know?" Gongshu Jingyi didn't have the heart to answer Gongshu Isin. He waved his hand and said, "Who knows if it's true or not? Didn't Daoist Xiao already come to the star-picking tower? That news must be fake. Bai Qingyu, Demon King Bai Qing of the Thousand Beasts Sacred Ground, is the descendant of the five-colored sea godshell of the Great Sage Hall. Sky-concealing ridge, demon king Peng Jun of the Thousand Beasts Sacred Ground, is the descendant of one of the Great Sage Hall's 6 Great Sage Hall. Ancient Bell Mountain, demon king Ni Quan of the Thousand Beasts Sacred Ground, is the descendant of one of the Great Sage Hall's 6 Great Sage Hall's Flying Feather Void Beast. The 3 demon kings joined forces to suppress a dragon that looked like Xiao Hua for more than 200 years. The cultivators of the hidden immortal continent, the Merchant Union, the Dragon Tribe of the Dragon Island, and the Fortune Gate of the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range all mistakenly believed that the dragon was Xiao Hua and traveled thousands of miles to rescue her. Demon King Bai Qing set up a banquet to feast on the flesh and blood of human cultivators. Xiao Hua flew into a rage, and with a wave of his hand, 200,000 Fortune Gate disciples appeared, killing more than 500,000 demonic beasts from Bai Qingyu, Sky-concealing ridge, and Ancient Bell Mountain. The blood of the demonic beasts spilled all over Bai Qingyu. In this battle, Fortune Gate's Shen Songzi and Daoist Jing Ting appeared, both Dao Gate's body integration cultivators with peak 7th grade origin force. Fortune Gate's Yuan Ya appeared and killed several 7th grade origin force great demons. Fortune Gate's Black Bear, Golden Eagle, and White Lion appeared, all of them were star-plucking realm cultivators with 6th grade origin force. Other than that, more than 200,000 Fortune Gate disciples set up the capital star formation, divided into 108 smaller formations, and each formation had an unknown disciple with 7th grade origin force. After the bloodbath in Bai Qingyu, the 3 great sages of the demonic beast race, the golden-winged Great Peng, the flying feather void beast, and the 5-colored sea godshell were transported to Bai Qingyu through the Great Sage Hall. The battle between Xiao Hua and the 3 great sages is unknown. We only know that the Fortune Gate disciples were ordered to flatten Sky-concealing ridge and destroy Ancient Bell Mountain. One day later, the battle between Xiao Hua and the 3 great sages ended, and the 200,000 Fortune Gate disciples were ordered to return to Bai Qingyu. The 3 demon kings admitted their sins and offered Bai Qingyu, Sky-concealing ridge, and Ancient Bell Mountain to the Fortune Gate to atone for their sins. Sky-concealing ridge and Ancient Bell Mountain fell into the hands of the Fortune Gate's Golden Eagle and White Lion, and Bai Qingyu was bestowed to the Merchant Union. After that, the 3 great sages returned to the Great Sage Hall. Xiao Hua expelled the 3 demon kings and ordered more than 200,000 Fortune Gate disciples to escort the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range disciples back to the hidden immortal mainland, and the Fortune Gate disciples pointed their swords at the hidden immortal realm. Along the way, anyone who stood in the way of the Fortune Gate's army was killed. Starting from Bai Qingyu, the Fortune Gate annihilated 2 demonic beasts, 2 demon kings, 23 great sages, and no less than 600,000 demonic beasts. Thinking of this, Meng Cheng raised his head and looked around, saying, "At this point, the Fortune Gate's disciples' fame is like the sun in the sky. Not only has the hidden immortal mainland shocked, but also the 1,000 demonic beast sacred ground. Xiao Hua's fame has reached its peak." Chapter 4493. Is there anything else? Murong Jiang's face turned pale, and he asked in a trembling voice. "Brother Murong," Meng Cheng said indifferently, "I want to ask you, as the Murong family's patriarch, if you lead all the Murong family's disciples, can you accomplish such a great feat?" Murong Jiang didn't seem to think that Meng Cheng was mocking him. He thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, "If we don't care about the cost, we might be able to do it. But, after this battle, I'm afraid, my Murong family will be removed from the hidden immortal continent." "That's right, if the Murong family is like this, then so is my Meng family." Meng Cheng nodded. "The Fortune Gate's disciples are already domineering, what else do we need?" The whole place fell silent again. From this day on, the Fortune Gate's valiant image would no longer have any objections to the Fortune Gate's disciples dominating the mysterious yellow list. "Miss Nan." Meng Cheng handed the jade eye to Gongshu Jingye, then asked Nan Huayue, "The battle between the 3 great sages and Senior Xiao is not recorded in detail. No matter what, Daoist Xiao is still a grand ascension stage cultivator of our human race. He was able to defeat 3 great sages of the 1,000 demons sacred ground. This is definitely worthy of our respect. Zhai Xinglu should have recorded the battle in detail." Nan Huayue pursed her lips and smiled. Senior Meng, you're making things difficult for my Zhai Xinglu. That was a battle between the 4 supreme cultivators of our 3 continents. Other than the 4 great sages of the Great Sage Temple, the Immortal Palace's 9th grade literature star, the Thunder Temple's 3 Buddhist lords, and the various clans' patriarchs, who else can see the truth clearly? We're willing to pay a high price, Murong Jiang hurriedly said, as long as Zhai Xinglu can get the truth. Even if you have the source stones, you need to be alive to spend them. Nan Huayue was still smiling as she replied indifferently, my Zhai Xinglu has the foresight. All right. Murong Jiang knew that this matter was too difficult, so he said perfunctorily and didn't say anything else. Seniors. Nan Huayue looked at the somewhat quiet starry sky and said, if there's nothing else you need from me, I'll have to put away this defensive formation that I'm challenging to bury the hatchet. The group of Confucian martial grandmasters had been absent-minded for a long time. They all responded in low voices, and the halos around them gradually faded away. Not long after, the starry sky disappeared, and the stars scattered in all directions. The pavilions and corridors once again appeared. Nan Huayue took one last look at his surroundings and stepped into the full moon. The moonlight disappeared, and the entire defensive array turned into darkness. The challenge to bury the hatchet was not held, but all the disciples' blood was boiling with excitement. Various families had also activated their pavilions' defensive formations. No one knew what the other families were discussing, but everyone knew that there was only one topic in the entire star-plucking pavilion, and that was Xiao Hua and the Fortune Gate. Xiao Hua stepped into the full moon, but as the moonlight overflowed, his figure had already landed on a corridor. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to take a few more glances, a Confucian cultivator immediately bowed and said, Senior, our palace lord invites you. All right. Xiao Hua nodded. He turned to look at Mo Jianli and asked, are you coming with this old man, or with the star-plucking pavilion? Mo Jianli did not hesitate. He bowed and said, this junior has already promised the star-plucking pavilion. If this junior does not fulfill this promise, this junior feels that he is not worthy to be a Fortune Gate disciple. Haha, good. This is the true Mo Jianli. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, you can go now. When you come out of the Star Moon Palace, follow this old man back to the Fortune Gate. Yes, junior understands. Mo Jianli agreed, and found a way to leave. Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror and put Yuanya away. He then said to the Confucian cultivator, you lead the way. Senior, please. The Confucian cultivator respectfully gestured and led Xiao Hua to a flight of stairs. In a short while, Xiao Hua had already reached the top floor. The Confucian cultivator did not dare to approach, and Xiao Hua entered the main hall. The interior of the hall was no different from when Xiao Hua had left. However, the black and yellow rankings boards were particularly eye-catching. Seeing Xiao Hua enter, Fairy Xingyu clapped and said with a smile, welcome Great Gate Master Xiao to my star-plucking pavilion. I hope that Great Gate Master Xiao's Fortune Gate will take care of my star-plucking pavilion's business in the future. How is that possible? Xiao Hua curled his lips and said, my Fortune Gate still has the Endless Merchant Union, how can we take care of your business? Moreover, the star-plucking pavilion is so powerful that they can even update the mysterious yellow board at the same time. Why would they need my Fortune Gate to take care of their business? Great Gate Master Xiao, what do you think of my star-plucking pavilion and the Endless Merchant Union, forming an alliance? Fairy Xingyu said in a teasing tone, the Fortune Gate is like the sun in the sky, how can you let my star-plucking pavilion bask in some glory? Xiao Hua. There was worry on Xu Zhirai's face as he frowned. This time, you've shown off too much. Although you were forced to do this, your Fortune Gate's mysterious yellow list can be seen as a challenge to the Immortal Palace's prestige. How can the Immortal Palace let this go? Moreover, the Tao Gate is the common enemy of the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect. With your current strength, you may not be afraid of 1 or 2 Confucian cultivators, but what if the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect join forces? Don't forget, you also offended 3 great sages from the Great Temple. Back then, that brat Grand Mist was too arrogant and didn't know how to hide his strength and bide his time. He was suppressed by the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect, and the demonic beast race together. His subordinates were also completely wiped out. Your current situation is no different from that brat Grand Mist. In fact, it's even worse. You have to think of a way out. That's right, Grand Mist's cultivation wasn't as high as yours back then, and his subordinates weren't as strong as your fortune gate. Even so, the immortals, Buddhists, and demonic beasts couldn't tolerate it, so how can they tolerate you? Fairy Xingyu added, Great Gate Master Xiao, I'm afraid you don't have many good days left. If it's not possible, you should follow us to the immortal world. Many thanks for the two seniors' concern. Xiao Hua smiled. My situation is different from the Grand Mist ancestors, and the current situation of the three continents is also different from that time. I don't think that the immortals, Buddhists, and demonic beasts can join forces again. Since they can't join forces, I don't have to be afraid of them. As for the Star Moon Palace, I will naturally follow seniors to take a look. However, I will definitely not enter the immortal world through the Star Moon Palace. If I leave, what will happen to the Fortune Gate? Junior's disciples haven't grown up yet. Shuji looked at Xiao Hua and didn't speak for a long time. After a while, he said, Xiao Hua, to be honest, I've seen many outstanding Daoist cultivators before I became an immortal. After I became an immortal, I've seen even more elites from various realms. After I accidentally entered the three continents, I've also seen many outstanding Confucian cultivators. However, you're the first to grow so quickly. I want to give you some advice, but after thinking about it, you don't have any lofty ambitions in your heart. You're also infinitely benevolent. If the immortals, Buddhists, and demonic beasts didn't force you too much, you probably wouldn't have stirred up such a huge mess. However, the problem is that people have no choice in the martial world. There are many things that we can't predict at this time. You should be careful. Xiao Hua smiled and nodded. I'm really flattered by Senior's praise. Senior's words are exactly what I wanted. I was born in a farmer's family, and my whole life's cultivation has been based on the idea of living a comfortable life. As long as the immortals, Buddhists, and demonic beasts don't do anything to my fortune gate, I won't cause trouble. I can understand your thinking. Fairy Xingyu shook her head and said, however, Immortal Emperor Gaochen, Mahavirokana revered sage, and the golden-winged Great Peng may not think so. Oh, and the Great Sage Temple's newly promoted 7 stars Great Sage. Although he knows you well, he's still a demonic beast. He will think for the Great Sage Temple and the demonic beast race. He may not care about your little friendship. Your fortune gate has caused too much of a commotion. It's impossible for them not to be on guard and not do anything to you. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and probed, Junior's fortune gate may be in trouble, but that's in the future. Senior's star-picking tower may be in trouble now, right? Fairy Xingyu was stunned and asked curiously, Xiao Hua, what do you mean? Could it be that someone is coveting star-picking tower? Shuji immediately understood and probed. Yes. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Junior is curious. Someone actually dares to have designs on the two seniors. Which aristocratic family is it? Fairy Xingyu's face instantly turned frosty. She said coldly, they're really tired of living. I don't know which aristocratic family it is. Xiao Hua replied. However, it seems that most of them are Star-Picking Tower's disciples. Shuji glanced at Fairy Xingyu and said, I've already told you to show more of your strength when necessary. I'm afraid that the 7th grade essence force that you have displayed has caused your subordinates' ambitions to soar. Who is it? Fairy Xingyu asked. How would I know? Xiao Hua's neck stiffened. I just met them. Why didn't you investigate? Fairy Xingyu was so angry that she almost jumped up. Star-Picking Tower doesn't belong to me, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Moreover, didn't Senior remind me when I went out earlier? Don't have designs on Star-Picking Tower? Damn it. Fairy Xingyu cursed. Forget it. Shuji could tell that Xiao Hua was angering Fairy Xingyu. He waved his hand and said, let Xiao Hua explain the situation. Yes, Senior. Xiao Hua stopped smiling and explained what he had encountered. Fairy Xingyu said fiercely, I've been paying attention to the movements outside Star-Picking Tower. I didn't expect them to be so bold as to play tricks under my nose. You withdrew so many star-picking towers from the 1,000 demons' sacred realm this time. It must have affected the interests of some tower masters. Shuji said with a smile. It seems that you have to thank Xiao Hua. If it weren't for the arrival of a human Mahayana realm expert, these people would have already taken action. Humph. Fairy Xingyu stood up and curled her lips. I'd like to see who dares to take action. His arrival has made things more troublesome for me. With that, Fairy Xingyu floated out. Chapter 4494. Seeing Fairy Xingyu leave, Shuji shook his head slightly and said, Alas, she's so strong. Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat, and he said in a low voice, Senior, why don't you say it in front of her? Shuji put away the expression on his face and replied indifferently, Why should I say it? Senior. Xiao Hua wanted to play matchmaker and said, Actually, how can you not understand Senior Xingyu's thoughts? Sometimes, the window paper still needs us male cultivators to poke through it. Shuji looked at Xiao Hua meaningfully and said, Do you know what I'm thinking? I don't know. Xiao Hua answered honestly. Then don't say too much. Shuji said angrily, Just take care of yourself. Among the 3 continents, you're the one with the most trouble now. Hee hee. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Senior, don't worry. Junior knows what to do. Well, I know that every cultivator has their secrets, and you're no exception. Shuji nodded. I don't want to probe too much. Oh, by the way, Fairy Xingyu and I sensed some fluctuations related to the secrets of heaven in the direction of the Hall of Heroes. However, when we investigated the star-picking tower and gathered the disciples to ask, we didn't find any clues. This matter, is it related to you? Secrets of heaven? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. After thinking for a moment, he nodded and said, Junior saw the Hall of Heroes in the Hall of Heroes and had some understanding of karma. If the secrets of heaven are related to karma, then it's related to me. Hiss. Shuji gasped and said in surprise, The way of karma? One of the 3,000 great Taos, the way of karma? You actually know how to cultivate the way of karma? Xiao Hua shook his head and said, Junior doesn't know what the way of karma is. Junior just met a woman named Ju Xia on the Dawn Rain continent. She gave me 2 jade slips, one was the sun shrouding art, and the other was the heaven control technique. Junior first cultivated the sun shrouding art, then dabbled in the heaven control technique. This so-called heaven control technique might have some relationship with the karma that Senior mentioned. Ju Xia. Shuji frowned, and a rare solemn expression appeared on his face. He transmitted a voice transmission. Are you sure her name is Ju Xia? Xiao Hua was startled and also nodded and said, That's right. It's Jo Xia. This Junior won't remember wrongly. Shuji thought for a moment, then raised his hand. A lightning net the size of a fist appeared in his hand. As he waved his hand, the lightning net flew out and covered the space several hundred feet around them. As the lightning net entered the space, obscure fluctuations appeared in the space. Xiao Hua. Shuji transmitted his voice again. Does Ju Xia have any obvious characteristics? There are no obvious characteristics. Seeing how serious Shuji was, Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent and honestly replied, She's a beautiful woman. Is that woman so beautiful that you can't forget her? Shuji asked. Even if you don't think about her, she will still appear in your mind. Or do you want to forget her, but you can't forget her? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, Yeah. Could it be that Senior has encountered it before? I don't have the same opportunity as you. Since Shuji already knew, his face regained its calmness and he replied indifferently, I just saw such a record in a secret record of the immortal realm. Xiao Hua was even more anxious and transmitted his voice in a low voice. Senior, can you explain in detail? Shuji didn't answer him. Instead, he closed his eyes and used his thumb and forefinger to pinch the space between his eyebrows, rubbing it gently. A wisp of lightning flickered between his eyebrows. Xiao Hua didn't dare to disturb him and only watched quietly. After a moment, Shuji opened his eyes and sighed. Xiao Hua, do you know about Qingqiu Mountain? Qingqiu Mountain? Xiao Hua shook his head almost without thinking. This junior doesn't know. Then do you know about the nine-tailed fox? Xiao Hua still shook his head. This junior doesn't know. Qingqiu Mountain is a barren mountain in ancient times, and the nine-tailed fox clan lives on this mountain. The nine-tailed fox clan knows yin and yang and is good at transformation. They are often associated with the powerhouses who changed the world in ancient times. Moreover, every nine-tailed fox is a rare beauty in the eyes of humans, and also a rare demon in the eyes of demons. Let's put it this way. The nine-tailed fox is a demon condensed from the most beautiful yin in the world. It is a fatal temptation to every existence with yang aura. However, they don't seem to reveal their true appearance to any human or demon, and would only take out their illusory appearance unless they decide to follow that person or demon for life. Of course, no one can tell whether it's an illusory appearance or their true appearance, which is why no one knows how beautiful they are. Although Shu Ji was transmitting his voice was still very low, and he continued, "It said that the nine-tailed fox clan has always started their name with Ju. If I'm not mistaken, the Ju Xia you met is a descendant of the nine-tailed fox of Qingqiu Mountain." Seeing Shu Ji so solemn, Xiao Hua asked curiously, "This Ju Xia said she's not from the Dawn Rain continent, but this junior doesn't know where she's from either. Could she really be from Qingqiu Mountain? That's absolutely impossible." Shu Ji shook his head. The nine-tailed fox of Qingqiu Mountain would never come to the present realm. She could only be a descendant whose bloodline had wandered to the lower realm. Also, could there be some taboo in Qingqiu Mountain? Xiao Hua asked again. Shu Ji nodded. That's right. If it weren't for the 3 continents, this Shu wouldn't have dared to say the 3 words Qingqiu Mountain. Why? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Don't ask why, this Shu doesn't know either. Shu Ji replied. This Shu is merely a punisher of the Punisher Palace. Hiss. Xiao Hua was stunned and stared at Shu Ji. Then why are you telling this junior all this, senior? Sigh. Shu Ji sighed in a rare instance and looked up towards the distance, his gaze seemingly piercing through time and space as he said, because this Shu had received guidance from the nine-tailed fox before ascending to immortality. Later, after ascending to immortality, I obtained somewhere in the immortal realm, the legacy of the Qingqiu Mountain lineage that had fallen to the immortal realm. Although this Shu's divination technique is evolved from thunderbolts, its foundation is still the legacy of the Qingqiu Mountain. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. You seem to be saying too much, senior. You don't have to tell this junior all this. No. Shu Ji shook his head. This Shu had long predicted that you were fated to meet this Shu. Previously, this Shu only thought that you were related to the Xingyue Palace, but I didn't expect that you were actually related to the nine-tailed fox. Think about it, that Ju Xia. How did you get to know her? Boom. When Xiao Hua heard this, it was as if he was suddenly enlightened. His body shook as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked at Shu Ji with a dumbstruck expression and muttered, Ju Xia said that what she wanted this junior to do was too difficult. It would take 10,000 years or even 100,000 years to accomplish it. Therefore, she did not tell this junior what she wanted this junior to do. She is indeed a cunning nine-tailed fox. She is indeed a nine-tailed fox who knows yin and yang. Shu Ji sighed. If she hadn't been able to predict that you would meet this Shu in the 3 continents, you would have to cultivate for 100,000 years before you could ascend to the immortal realm and meet this Shu. Xiao Hua was confused again and smiled bitterly. Could it be that finding senior is what Ju Xia wants this junior to do? To be precise, it's to find the inheritance that Qingqiu Mountain left in the immortal realm, not to find this Shu. As Shu Ji spoke, he tapped between his eyebrows, and the lightning mark between his eyebrows flashed again. When a thumb-sized lightning ball appeared, Shu Ji instructed, Xiao Hua, use vigorous thunderbolt to collect this lightning ball. Be careful, don't expose the thing inside the lightning ball. Yes. Seeing that Shu Ji was so serious, Xiao Hua hurriedly tapped between his eyebrows. Several thick lightning threads appeared and landed on the lightning ball, waiting for it to fall between Xiao Hua's eyebrows. Shu Ji let out a long sigh and ordered again, remember, this matter and this item must not be known to anyone. Otherwise, your life will be in danger. Even this Shu won't be able to survive. Xiao Hua nodded. This junior is the best at this kind of thing. That's good. Shu Ji gave a rare smile. This item is Qingqiu Mountain's inheritance. You should be able to comprehend it when you're cultivating Fury of Thunder. Oh, right, your so-called mastery of heaven and earth must be related to this inheritance. You should be able to comprehend it when the conditions are right. If that's the case, then Zhu Xia must be related to this item. This junior can then pass this item to Zhu Xia with peace of mind? Xiao Hua asked doubtfully. It should be. Shuji shrugged, as if he had put down a heavy burden and replied. Senior, are you sure? Xiao Hua asked. Shuji nodded. Of course. When you come out of Xingyue Palace, you'll understand why I said so. Yes. This junior understands. Xiao Hua nodded. If this is Zhu Xia's, this junior will definitely. At this point, Xiao Hua said happily, if that's the case, then this junior will definitely return to Dawn Rain Continent. This? I don't know. Shuji shook his head. Didn't Zhu Xia say that it might be 100,000 years? Maybe she'll go to the immortal realm to look for you. Then, Shuji reminded him again, of course, the matters of Dawn Rain Continent seem to be somewhat secretive. However, since Xingyue didn't say anything, I'm afraid she has some taboos. Don't make things too difficult for her. As he spoke, Shuji raised his eyebrows and opened his mouth. A thunderbolt struck the air. The thunder net that had previously been hidden in the void revealed itself and entered Shuji's mouth along with the thunderbolt. In just a few breaths, Fairy Xingyue returned with a murderous look on her face. How was it? Shuji asked. Did you find it? PH, I don't dare to say anything about the 3 continents, but within Xingyue, there's nothing I can't do. Fairy Xingyue replied with a cold snort. Xiao Hua smiled and asked, in that case, other than Zhaixing Lu, it also involves the hidden immortal continent. Fairy Xingyue glared at Xiao Hua and said fiercely, it's only been a few days. Why are you becoming more and more like Shuji? Can't you say something nice? Chapter 4495. Hearing this, Xiao Hua looked at Fairy Xingyue innocently, touched his nose, and said, I'm not like Senior Shu, but like Senior Shu, I like to seek truth from fact. Seek truth from fact. You have the nerve to say that. You touched your nose again. Fairy Xingyue replied. You guessed right. I removed a few star-picking towers in the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm, but 2 tower masters were not satisfied. They wanted to take advantage of me entering the Star Moon Palace to collude with a Confucian family to seize the Star Moon Palace. Unfortunately, although I found the 2 tower masters and even found out about the Confucian cultivators who sneaked into the star-picking tower, I couldn't find out which Confucian family was behind them. I searched the soul of one of the tower masters and his primordial spirit exploded. Then, I used the secret technique of the Palm Palace. That Confucian cultivator's primordial spirit didn't explode, but I couldn't find anything. It's really strange. Shuji said indifferently, don't worry. You have a lot of time before the Star Moon Palace appears. But then, Shuji suddenly raised his head and looked to the east. He whispered, I'm afraid. You don't have time. Sure enough, Fairy Xingyue also looked in that direction and smiled bitterly. You're right. Xiao Hua released his divine consciousness in surprise. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything. After a few breaths, Shuji and Fairy Xingyue looked solemn. Fairy Xingyue said to Shuji, think about it carefully. What are we not prepared for? I'll get them to activate the star-picking tower now. Okay. Shuji nodded. After Fairy Xingyue left, he pointed to a quiet room and said to Xiao Hua, that's a quiet room. You can meditate there. When we get to the Qidi River, I'll call you out. At that time, I'll need to borrow your magic power. Yes, I understand. Xiao Hua nodded, got up, and entered the quiet room. The quiet room was not big, only about 100 feet in size. It was very different from the usual luxurious style of the star-picking tower. When Xiao Hua saw the praying mat in the middle of the quiet room, his heart warmed again. Needless to say, Shuji must have used this room for his own quiet cultivation when he came to Zhaixing Lu. Now, Shuji had given this quiet room to Xiao Hua to use. Of course, there were many quiet rooms that could be used in Zhaixing Lu, but Shuji had taken out the quiet room that he was used to. It was clear that he saw Xiao Hua as his junior. Xiao Hua sat down cross-legged and pondered for a moment. Then, he waved his hand and sent out a jade talisman, setting up the capital star formation. After scanning with his divine sense and confirming that there were no flaws, Xiao Hua sat down with peace of mind, raised his thumb, and placed it on his forehead. Thunder flashed and the ball of lightning Shu Ji gave Xiao Hua flew out again. However, at this moment, the ball of lightning had just appeared and it immediately emitted a faint fluctuation. The fluctuation had only just appeared when Xiao Hua's mind swept the ball of lightning into the space in an instant. The ripples then charged towards the capital star array. Whoosh! The fluctuations weakened, but when they collided with the capital star formation, the space several meters to the left of Xiao Hua trembled. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and raised his right hand, using the thunder palm. At that moment, the lightning palm was different from the lightning palms displayed by ordinary cultivators. It was formed from the 5 Qi righteous lightning, 9 firmaments divine lightning, 3 corpses yin lightning and nether demonic lightning. When the lightning descended, the fluctuations were instantly eliminated, leaving not a trace behind. Soon after, Xiao Hua closed his eyes in satisfaction. His eyes focused on his nose, and his nose focused on his heart as he began to meditate. Xiao Hua's mind fell into the space and immediately turned into Jade Archive Xiao Hua. The ball of lightning that had been swept into the space by his mind earlier quietly floated there. Although the threads of lightning were constantly flashing, they didn't make any sound. The light and shadow emitted by the threads of lightning were also extremely strange and constantly changing. Even Jade Archive Xiao Hua was dumbfounded when he saw this. Looking at the space around the light and shadow, although there wasn't any force, the threads of lightning were still forced out of the cracks. Ripples of the same cryptic fluctuations spread out in all directions. Jade Archive Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed. With a tearing sound, it was as if silk was being torn apart. Under the threads of lightning, layers of lightning bolts rushed out like dragons and crazily collided with Jade Archive Xiao Hua's finger. Jade Archive Xiao Hua frowned and made a grabbing motion with his right hand. Buzz! Tens of thousands of layers of crystal-like light shields instantly appeared and trembled as they imprisoned the space several meters around the threads of lightning. Boom! 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 The threads of lightning were also powerful. They crazily attacked the restriction and broke through layer after layer. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of layers of restrictions were like blooming flower bud. This is the restriction set up by Shu Ji. Feeling the familiar fury of lightning within the threads of lightning, Jade Archive Xiao Hua pondered. However, this restriction seems to be targeted at the inheritance item inside. When I forcibly broke the restriction, it triggered the restriction. While Xiao Hua was thinking, Jade Archive Xiao Hua's right hand made a grabbing motion. Hum hum hum. With several explosions, tens of thousands of light barriers appeared once again. When the horned dragon-like lightning threads disappeared, 90% of the light barriers had been penetrated. Boom! The threads of lightning disappeared and the lightning ball also turned invisible. At the same time, a 9-colored beam of light let out a loud roar and rushed high into the sky. The 9-colored beam of light was so gorgeous that it reflected on Jade Archive Xiao Hua's face and made it look sparkling and translucent. Inside the beam of light, a palm-sized 9-tailed fox sculpture appeared. When Jade Archive Xiao Hua's gaze landed on this sculpture, he immediately felt that everything in front of him was multicolored, and a kaleidoscopic world was born near Jade Archive Xiao Hua. Jade Archive Xiao Hua was startled and hurriedly closed his eyes. However, the rotating multicolored world was like a flower floating in his mind, and it made him feel like he was sinking deeper and deeper. Damn it! Jade Archive Xiao Hua cursed and quickly retreated. Thunder appeared between his eyebrows. Sure enough, the thunder struck and shattered the multicolored world. In front of Jade Archive Xiao Hua's eyes was another pillar of light that soared into the sky. Jade Archive Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and his eyebrows turned into lightning. Through this lightning, Jade Archive Xiao Hua was able to see the colorful fox sculpture clearly. However, Jade Archive Xiao Hua only glanced at the colorful fox sculpture and immediately frowned and looked up at the pillar of light that pierced the sky. The pillar of light was still rushing up and there was no sign of it stopping. Damn it, this inheritance item of Qingqiu Mountain is too strange. No wonder Senior Shu warned I. Jade Archive Xiao Hua sighed and stretched out his hands. His left hand reached down and his right hand reached up and pressed down. Jade Archive Xiao Hua's hands suddenly crossed space and landed on the two ends of the pillar of light that was madly rushing out. Then Jade Archive Xiao Hua put his hands together again. Boom boom boom. Like the sound of the pillar of air exploding, the huge pillar of light was actually pressed into the nine-tailed colorful fox sculpture by Jade Archive Xiao Hua. Then, Jade Archive Xiao Hua did not wait for the nine-tailed colorful fox sculpture to make any more movements. He grabbed with one hand and a layer of restriction fell on the painted sculpture. The painted sculpture then returned to its calm state. The Jade Archive Xiao Hua frowned slightly and looked at the painted sculpture. He saw that the endless waves of light appeared again. The waves of light rippled like fine lines, and the nine-tailed fox in the painted sculpture disappeared in an instant. A strange and clever squirrel was revealed. Before Jade Archive Xiao Hua could see clearly, another wave of light emerged under the fine lines and another ferocious and strange demonic beast was transformed. Oh! Jade Archive Xiao Hua was surprised. In a few breaths of time, the colorful fox had changed into no less than a dozen different appearances. Along with Jade Archive Xiao Hua's surprise, the beautiful appearance of Juxia changed. That smile yet not smile, that angry yet not angry voice was like the first time Xiao Hua saw it. It's really powerful. Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded. Juxia's appearance disappeared and a nine-tailed fox's original appearance was born. The nine-tailed fox's 9 tails each had a different color, and there were endless threads of light in each tail. Each thread of light contained a lot of brilliance, just like a world of brilliance. Looking at the nine-tailed fox's body, there were even more brilliant spots of light like the stars in the starry sky. Not only did they emit brilliance, but they were also endlessly rotating. It seemed that each spot of light had its own trajectory, and each trajectory revealed a kind of mystery. The nine-tailed fox's original appearance was only revealed in a split second. If Jade Archive Xiao Hua was not in his space, he would definitely not be able to see it. Then, countless illusions were born on the nine-tailed fox's painted sculpture, and the nine-tailed fox's original appearance could no longer be seen. Jade Archive Xiao Hua closed his eyes and thought for a moment. Rumble. The karmic hand hidden in the void within the space appeared. The big hand grabbed, and the nine-tailed fox's painted sculpture flew out of thin air and slowly fell into the big hand. The painted sculpture just touched the karmic hand, and the endless spots of light contained in the painted sculpture immediately flew out like butterflies and landed in various parts of the big hand. Swish swish swish. Strange fluctuations rushed out from various parts of the karmic hand. These fluctuations intertwined with each other, and pieces of light and shadow drifted down like fragments where the fluctuations intertwined. And within these lights and shadows, there were pieces of small worlds hidden within them. Slowly, the nine-tailed fox's painted sculpture merged into the karmic hand, and the space near the karmic hand trembled. In the trembling, it was as if there was an invisible chisel, chiseling out the unclear lines on the karmic hand one by one. Ha ha! Jade Archive Xiao Hua watched as the karmic hand became clearer and clearer, and couldn't help but laugh. Juxia really is of the Qingqiu lineage. The records in this legacy item are of the same origin as the mastery of heaven and earth. Along with his laughter, Jade Archive Xiao Hua's figure began to change. Just like the nine-tailed fox's light and shadow, he had already changed into dozens of images in the span of a few breaths. Only after half a cup of tea's worth of time did Jade Archive Xiao Hua's figure appear. He looked at his hands with great satisfaction and laughed. I previously thought that my transformation technique was pretty good, but compared to the Qingqiu lineage transformation technique, it's like the difference between heaven and earth. The Qingqiu lineage's so-called understanding of yin and yang and being adept at transformation really isn't a bluff. Let the karmic hand comprehend the yin and yang technique. I will learn this transformation technique, and in the future, I'll be able to deceive the 3 continent. Chapter 4496. With that thought in mind, Jade Archive Xiao Hua emerged from the space and focused his mind on his physical body. His hands did not seem to make any hand seals as his physical body began to slowly transform. First, it was various forms of humans, then beasts, and finally, plants and flowers. It was incredibly lifelike. At the same time that Xiao Hua was cultivating the Qingqiu sect's secret art, the dozens of pavilions outside the star-plucking tower were now spinning faster. The flames and colorful lotuses that were the silhouettes of light before were now clouds, while the star-plucking tower that was shaped like a pagoda was now slowly becoming oval. As the clouds fell into the sky, pillars of noble qi crashed down. As the pavilions spun, rays of starlight swayed and appeared. The light screen of stars and moon also gradually rose from the pillars of noble qi. Rumble. When the space hundreds of miles around the star-plucking tower was filled with clouds and starlight, the entire ground began to shake. Amidst the rumbling, the star-plucking tower was uprooted out of thin air. Beneath the ground, the star-plucking tower's foundation broke through the ground. Rocks tumbled and mountain ridges collapsed. A 1,000-mile-long ship flew out from the ground. Lightning arcs flashed around it as it rose into the air. The ship looked similar to the Thunder Ship, but in reality, there was a huge difference. The star-plucking tower in the center of the ship alone was something the Thunder Ship did not have. Moreover, the lightning arcs around the ship looked powerful, but in reality, they were still relying on the power of the clouds, stars, and moon. They were far less powerful than the Thunder Ship. The flying ship first soared into the sky. Countless great qi pillars in the void crashed into the defensive array outside the ship. Auspicious clouds floated out from the defensive array. Woo-woo. Amidst the whistling of the wind, the flying ship began to slowly fly towards the rising sun. Xiao Hua hid in the quiet room to cultivate. In the beginning, his physical body still had some shape and could transform into all things in the world. However, in the end, his body no longer looked like a body, nor did it have a fixed shape. It turned into a stream of light and also turned into floating clouds. Spots of light were finally born in the capital star array, as if stars were flashing in the sky. In front of Xiao Hua's eyes, the colorful world that he saw when he used the lightning escape to its limit was faintly born again. Xiao Hua did not dare to slack off, nor did he dare to further comprehend that level. He merely maintained his original state, carefully comprehending and observing the state of his physical body. The secret arts of Qingqiu flowed in his mind like a clear spring. After an unknown amount of time, the light spots in the entire space flickered and instantly gathered together. Xiao Hua's silhouette was revealed. At the same time, thousands of phantoms emerged from the silhouette like a peacock spreading its tail. When the phantoms were annihilated, Xiao Hua's smiling figure quietly stood in mid-air. At this moment, Xiao Hua seemed to be standing in the air, yet also seemed to be drawn into the void. His body seemed to be in the light, yet also seemed to be in the darkness. Between the light and the darkness, strands of twisted light rapidly flowed out of Xiao Hua's body. The distorted Xiao Hua seemed to be both real and illusory at the same time. He was stepping on the boundary between real and illusory. So that's how it is. A smile appeared at the corner of Xiao Hua's lips. It had more charm than before, but the compassion in his black and white eyes did not change at all. Xiao Hua mused to himself. So-called transformations are nothing more than the combination of light and physical body. The inferior would use the physical body to drive light and shadow, the mediocre would use light and shadow to power the physical body, while the superior would fuse light and shadow together with the physical body. It's a pity. Even if the Qingqiu lineage knows that yin and yang are adept at transformations, they would never know that there is a light escape technique in this world, one that allows one to hide in light as an escape technique. Light and shadow would fuse with the physical body at a superficial level, and the physical body would fuse with light and shadow at a profound level. In the end, the art of yin and yang is the true foundation of the Qingqiu lineage, while transformations are but a minor detail. And yet, I was able to comprehend the surface of it in such a short period of time. Senior Shu, the immortal realm's enforcer of punishments, had not gained much from the legacy of Qingqiu Mountain for so long. Aside from the fact that Senior Shu had never practiced the art of heaven and earth manipulation before, it is also because Senior Shu does not possess a demon form and could not grasp the mysteries of the diamond's cultivation of the power of stars and moon. More importantly, Senior Shu has never refined the rainbow bone, which means he could not comprehend the mysteries of light and physical body. Xiao Hua's brow lifted at the thought, an indescribable elegance appearing between his brows. He floated up from the praying mat, raised a hand and grasped. His hand instantly turned into a sheet of light and shadow, and the hundreds of jade talismans that had been laid out in a formation fell into his hand like swallows returning to their nest. Just as he put away the jade talismans, a faint voice wafted from outside the sanctuary. "Xiao Hua, this junior is here." Xiao Hua hurriedly replied. "Is something the matter, Senior Shu? The Chidi River is up ahead. If you don't have anything urgent to cultivate, come out of seclusion first." Shuji did not use his divine ability, but only transmitted his voice softly from outside. Xiao Hua flew to the door of the sanctuary, urged his body to pass through the pavilion, and appeared in front of Shuji. He smiled and said, "This junior has already finished his meditation and was waiting for Senior to summon me." "Oh!" Shuji's gaze swept over Xiao Hua, and he could not help but be surprised. Behind him, Fairy Xingyu also said curiously, "Xiao Hua, you seem to have changed into a different person." Xiao Hua touched his nose and said with a wry smile, "Seniors, what do you mean? I've only been cultivating in seclusion for dozens of days. Why do I seem to have changed into a different person? The ancients have said that a scholar who has been away for 3 days should be looked at with new eyes." Fairy Xingyu looked up and down at Xiao Hua again, pursed her lips, and said with a smile, "This sentence is especially suitable for you. Previously, you were like a Xiao Hua. Although you were budding, you were abnormally shy and had a bit of a dusty aura. But now, this Xiao Hua has bloomed. Not only is its fragrance assailing the nose, but it is also glorious. Even if light dust falls on it, it will produce a luster, not to mention other things, just this little habit of yours of wiping your nose. It looked a little funny before, but now, it has a kind of cute and attractive charm. Even I can't help but feel a sense of familiarity." "Elder sister," Xiao Hua said with a wry smile, "can you not be so mushy? Why does it sound like there's a lot of cosmetics?" "Xingyue is right," Shuji said meaningfully, "you have indeed made me look at you in a new light. Senior, you flatter me." Xiao Hua understood tacitly and bowed. "This is all thanks to Senior's kindness. This junior dares not forget it." Shuji helped Xiao Hua up and said, "Opportunities are opportunities. This is the will of the heavens. What are the two of you doing behind my back again?" Fairy Xingyu asked. When she saw the two of them acting like this, she immediately understood something. "If you give Xingyue to Xiao Hua, I will consider telling you." Shuji turned to look at Fairy Xingyu and said calmly. When Xiao Hua heard this, he smiled wryly in his heart and thought, "Senior Xiao, are you trying to help me or set a trap for me?" Xiao Hua naturally wanted Xingyue, but Fairy Xingyu clearly had her own plans and had no intention of handing it over to him. When Xiao Hua encountered the betrayal of the two Zhai Xing Lu, he did not express his intentions. He only asked Fairy Xingyu to investigate it herself. He had already made his attitude clear in advance. Zhai Xing Lu had nothing to do with him. Since Fairy Xingyu saw that there were some problems with Zhai Xing Lu, she must be able to predict that Zhai Xing Lu would be in chaos in the future. Given this, Fairy Xingyu might have the intention of entrusting Xiao Hua to him. Now that Shuji had said this, even if Fairy Xingyu had such thoughts, they would definitely be dispelled by Shuji's words. Sure enough, Fairy Xingyu smiled coldly and said, "It's up to you whether you want to say it or not. The matter between two men has nothing to do with me. I just taught a few more secret techniques of the immortal world. Who doesn't know how to do it? Teach me if you have the ability," Shuji retorted sarcastically, as if he was looking for trouble. Fairy Xingyu was slightly taken aback. However, after a moment, she smiled and said, "Of course I know how to. However, that will have to wait until he reaches the immortal world. Let's go." Shuji glanced at Fairy Xingyu, knowing that she was warning him. However, he did not take it seriously and said, "The Star Moon Palace is already close at hand. Aren't you anxious at all?" "Phew." Fairy Xingyu straightened up and stretched. Her slender body was not much different from Shuji's. Then, Fairy Xingyu yawned and said lazily, "I was naturally excited the first few times. However, I'm used to disappointment now. Even though I've made so many preparations for the appearance of the Star Moon Palace, I don't dare have any more extravagant hopes when I think about the possibility of failure." Shuji frowned and said, "Didn't I tell you? With Xiao Hua's help this time, there won't be too much of a problem." "Your divination technique?" Fairy Xingyu smiled slightly and asked in return, "If there was a well-tested divination technique in this world, would you still be banished to the 3 continents? If your divination technique was really useful, would you still need to explore the Star Moon Palace for the 9th time? In this world, there are many fickle people. There are many feelings of loss and loneliness. Change is the essence of the heavenly way. You and I are just ordinary immortals. We can't take a peek at the heart of the heavenly way." Needless to say, Shuji could already sense the deep sense of loss in Fairy Xingyu's tone. Xiao Hua also understood that Fairy Xingyu's heart had been hurt by the 2 traitorous stargazing tower masters. Thus, she had doubts about the entire Star Moon expedition. Shuji opened his mouth, wanting to say something. However, when the words reached his mouth, he swallowed them back down. This was because Fairy Xingyu also knew what she should say. Xiao Hua did not need to say more. However, Xiao Hua might not know what Fairy Xingyu wanted to hear. Therefore, Xiao Hua glanced at Shuji and said to Fairy Xingyu with a smile, "Fairy, what are you saying?" In the eyes of the tens of thousands of humans and demons who entered the Star Moon Palace, you are the heavenly way. They racked their brains to enter the Star Moon Palace and find their own opportunities inside. However, how could they know? You were the one who found the Star Moon Palace. The most fundamental mystery of the Star Moon Palace is the passageway to the immortal world. Humph, of course. Women were the most fickle. Xiao Hua's strong flattery made Fairy Xingyu's face instantly look better. She rolled her eyes at Shuji and said, "Can't you say something nice? P.S. I'm glad to hear that Bai Jibao and Li Tong got married yesterday. I wish the golden couple 100 years of happiness and a long life together." Chapter 4497. Ha ha. Without waiting for Shuji to speak, Xiao Hua immediately laughed and said, "Senior Shu, I'll tell you more when we reach the immortal realm. There are too many people now, so it might be inconvenient to talk about some things." Fairy, quickly open Zhai Xinglu. Fairy Xingyu glanced at Shuji angrily. When she saw the coldness in Shuji's eyes, her heart trembled. Just as Xiao Hua had speculated, the Punisher Celestial Lord and the Discipline Celestial Lord were not on good terms, and the Punishment Palace and the Discipline Palace were like fire and water. It was fine if Fairy Xingyu and Shuji were in the 3 continents, but if they returned to the immortal realm, how could they be so free? Although they had not yet returned to the immortal realm, Shuji had already begun to be on guard, and Fairy Xingyu had a premonition of the estrangement between the 2 of them in the immortal realm. Alas, even if they are immortals, so what? Fairy Xingyu sighed secretly. With a wave of her sleeve, a cluster of starlight flew out from her hand and rushed to the top of the palace. When the brilliance of the top of the palace appeared, a clear and cloudless blue sky appeared in front of Xiao Hua. Shuji glanced at Fairy Xingyu and said to Xiao Hua, "Let's go. This is the Qidi River. The signs of the Star Moon Palace's appearance are obvious. It will appear at any time." "Okay." Xiao Hua nodded and followed Shuji out of Zhai Xinglu. At this time, Zhai Xinglu stopped on a mountain range. On one side of the mountain range, the disciples of the 100 schools of thought had begun to leave Zhai Xinglu one after another. The disciples of Zhai Xinglu, as well as the cultivators who had been selected to follow Zhai Xinglu into the Star Moon Palace, flew to the other side of the mountain range. Xiao Hua had just looked around when suddenly, an indescribable wind whistled in the distance. Xiao Hua hurriedly turned his head. In the east, a majestic river seemed to have come from the sky. It rushed across the ground and fell to the end of the sky. The river seemed to be endless and also seemed to be bottomless. The orange river sparkled under the sun. If there was more orange, it would be similar to the Blood River. If there was less orange, it would not be as brilliant as it was now. This was the Qidi River. The sparkling scarlet color covered the surface of the river like tiny swimming fish. Wisps of water vapor rushed into the air and emitted a scarlet glow. Although this scarlet glow was very thin, its brilliance was not inferior to the surface of the river. Where the wind blew, the brilliance swayed, and different illusions surged out. Occasionally, some clouds would surge and turn into colored glass, precious pearls, ingots, pearls, and other shapes, making them even more dazzling. Although the scenery of heaven and earth was vivid, after looking at it for a while, Xiao Hua felt somewhat bewildered. This was because above the surface of the river, the sound of the wind could be heard. Huge gusts of wind whistled past, as if there were many wind tunnels. The strange sounds were even more soul-stirring than the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves. However, in this violent wind, the surface of the river was picturesque, and the waves were like flowers. It was no different from the usual calm and tranquil waves. What was special was that under those thin ripples, the river water did not have any impurities. It was incomparably clear and bright like a crystal. At a glance, one could see more than a dozen feet. Under the surface of the water, perhaps there were some swaying aquatic plants, perhaps there were some floating algae, but no matter if it was fish, shrimp, or river worms, there were no traces of them. Xiao Hua was just about to release his divine sense to investigate, when boom! The sound of an explosion resounded from several thousand li away in the sky. Immediately, 10,000 waves surged violently like a tide, hiding the sky and covering the earth as they smashed down, covering an area of 10,000 li. Under the waves, an indescribable distortion appeared in the sky of 10,000 li. This distortion was like tens of millions of tiny vortexes. Not only did the nearby airflow mutate, crisscrossing and attacking, even the splashing sunlight flashed with light. The entire space of 10,000 li was filled with these waves, as if an enormous bubble was rapidly spreading in all directions. The ripples soared high into the sky, and clouds were torn apart one after another. Many fine spatial cracks could be faintly seen. The ripples crashed into the river surface, and many ditches that were several feet long were torn open. The ripples blew across the ground, and sand and pebbles were sent flying. Thousands of spider-web-like cracks appeared on the ground. However, the surface of the river still did not show any waves. The sand and stones on the ground rushed up several feet and then fell back down. It was as if a large hand was firmly pressing down on the space of several thousand li. Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the waves of space. Similar to the nine-tailed fox painted sculpture, layers upon layers of light entered Xiao Hua's mind. Tens of thousands of balls of light attracted Xiao Hua's gaze. Although Xiao Hua tried his best to avoid his gaze falling on these balls of light, in a flash, a spot of light had already appeared in front of him out of thin air. Boom! The moment Xiao Hua's gaze fell, a primitive catalogue crashed into Xiao Hua's mind. This prehistoric catalogue was a little different from what Xiao Hua had seen before. Although the mountains were extremely tall and the water was extremely deep, the mountains were collapsing and the water was pouring down. Amidst the rumbling of the mountains and rivers, there were many incomparably huge figures crazily fighting. These figures held lightning in their hands and spat out stars from their mouths. With a single punch, the sky would collapse. As their gazes wandered, the stars would explode. All kinds of indescribable wills and unparalleled power swept through the entire primitive world. These wills were extremely provocative and tyrannical. Even the incomparably huge primitive world could not withstand these wills. Xiao Hua was already at the grand ascension stage of the human race, and he had also experienced the ruins and the primordial continent in the past, but as soon as his spiritual sense came into contact with these consciousnesses, he was struck by a sense of inferiority, and a sense of acute pain welled up in his mind. Xiao Hua did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly withdrew his gaze and his scattered divine consciousness from the balls of light. However, in the space within 10,000 miles, a remnant red color had already appeared. The moment Xiao Hua's gaze fell, the sky gradually darkened. The setting sun, which was supposed to be setting in the west, shone listlessly in this space. Pieces of broken spiritual consciousness, rays of light that had been stripped away, and strands of remnant spiritual consciousness wandered helplessly in the blood-red color. Woo! Just as Xiao Hua was about to sigh, a wave that could destroy the heavens and the earth was born in the center of the space. A hurricane suddenly rose with the wave, and thousands of miles of space were torn apart. Wave after wave of collapse spread in all directions. In just an instant, the 10,000 miles of space that was previously covered completely disappeared. The balls of light were void, and the waves were void. Even Xiao Hua's divine consciousness, which had fallen into the space, was not spared. The collapse of the space was very strange. It was only within 10,000 miles of space, and outside of the wave, it was not affected at all. Furthermore, after the collapse, countless primordial chi of heaven and earth rushed in from other places, and the entire space gradually returned to its original state. Seeing this, Xiao Hua could not help but be dumbfounded. He thought to himself, oh my, what's the origin of this star-moon palace? How is it related to the eldritch world? However, it was only a moment before he came to a realization. Nonsense, if there's no origin, how can there be an opportunity to enter the immortal world inside? How can two immortals, Shuji and Fairy Xingyu, spend so much effort to enter? However, the star-moon palace has yet to appear. Just this premonition should be enough to extinguish the ambitions of many cultivators, right? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua looked around again. Indeed, the spaceship that Zhai Xinglu had restored had already descended from the sky and stopped steadily between the mountains. There were many Zhai Xinglu disciples sitting cross-legged on the spaceship. Every one of them was meditating, and wisps of noble chi and primordial chi of heaven and earth were entering the spaceship through the void. On the mountains around the spaceship, the 100 schools of thought had already dispersed. Many Confucian cultivators were lying on the ground dispiritedly. Some had blood at the corners of their mouths, some had blood seeping out of their 7 orifices, and some even had holes in their heads. Xiao Hua was only at a corner of the Chidi River. When he looked at the other places, he saw many great demons with 7th-grade primordial chi scattered all over the place. Xiao Hua's gaze swept across, and there were tens of thousands of them. Unlike humans, the great demons were mostly alone and did not have any followers. Moreover, among the tens of thousands of great demons, nearly 10% of them were lying on the ground, and they all looked seriously injured. There were even close to 100 great demons whose bodies had already collapsed, and it seemed that they would not survive. Not far from where the great demons were, there were some Buddhist disciples. There were not many of them, only about 1,000 of them. However, these Buddhas did not have the usual kind looks. Instead, they were all glaring angrily, and it was obvious that they were Buddhist guardians. On the other side of Zhai Xinglu, the situation was different from that of the demon race. Although it was already dusk, there was a brilliant brilliance in this space. Layers of auspicious clouds spread out in the sky like a barrier. Pillars of awe-inspiring chi, driven by the inscriptions on the armor, danced like horned dragons. Images of men plowing and women weaving, scholars reading at night, and generals fighting on the battlefield appeared on the inscriptions on the armor. Above these images, there were 4 huge flower-shaped flying boats that emitted a low rumble, and a majestic, awe-inspiring aura spread out in all directions. This aura carried enlightenment, subservience, majesty, and also self-admiration. Oh! Just as Xiao Hua was about to take a closer look at the 4 flower-shaped flying boats, a slightly puzzled voice sounded in his ears. Why aren't you reacting? Xiao Hua turned his head and looked at Fairy Xingyu, who was standing not far away and looking at him. He smiled and said, what kind of reaction does this junior need in order to express his admiration for the Star Moon Palace? Is it subservience to the aura in the premonition? No, no. Fairy Xingyu was obviously not attracted by Xiao Hua's deliberately awkward choice of words. Instead, she shook her head and said, you definitely have some secrets that you have not mentioned. The premonition of the Star Moon Palace is extraordinary. Even when Shuji and I saw it for the first time back then, we could not help but be deeply affected by it and almost suffered from it. However, you are completely fine. It even gives me a feeling that this is a common occurrence. Oh! If even the 2 seniors are deeply affected by it, what about the other disciples? Xiao Hua was shocked and hurriedly looked at the flying boat that Zhai Xinglu had transformed into. They are fine. Shuji's voice sounded. Because the premonition is too powerful, I have already placed a restriction outside the flying boat. The disciples of Zhai Xinglu cannot see these premonitions. After a while, I will open the restriction and let them get used to the aura of the Star Moon Palace. That's good. Xiao Hua looked at the strange flying boat and said with a smile, Senior, the style of this flying boat doesn't look very good. Chapter 4498. That's right. You have good taste. Fairy Xingyu was a little surprised by Xiao Hua's reaction. Xiao Hua wanted to distract her, but he couldn't. However, when Xiao Hua mentioned the style of the spaceship, her attention was immediately attracted. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, "When I built this spaceship, I didn't like this style. But Shuji said that this was the style of his hometown spaceship. He liked it, so I had to give in to him." "Xiao Hua, you really have good eyes. You can tell at a glance that this spaceship is not good looking." "That's right." Xiao Hua pointed to the huge deck and the cabin on the deck and said with a smile, "This style is too square. It's actually not suitable for the spaceship to fly. Junior's two Thunderboats are not as big as Senior's spaceship, but in terms of flying speed, I'm afraid that Senior's spaceship can't compare. Your Thunderboat borrowed the essence of the Thunder Vanquishing Bead and used the Thunder Pool as its driving force. It doesn't need any primordial stones or arrays as its foundation, so its speed is naturally fast." Shuji glanced at Xiao Hua and said, "Punisher Heavenly Lord has such a flying boat. How can I compare to Punisher Heavenly Lord?" "Oh." Xiao Hua patted his forehead and pretended to be surprised. "What a pity. What's wrong?" Fairy Xingyu was surprised and asked, "Did you forget something?" "No." Xiao Hua said in all seriousness, "Junior missed the opportunity to flatter the two seniors. The two Thunderboats are exactly one for each of us. Do you really have this intention?" Shuji raised his eyebrows and asked. Xiao Hua was originally joking. However, after hearing Shuji's words, he pondered for a moment and immediately understood the meaning behind his words. Without any hesitation, Xiao Hua took out two blank jade eyes from his bosom and placed them on his forehead. After a moment, he respectfully handed the two jade eyes to the two and said, "I presume that the two seniors don't care about the construction method of the Thunderboat. This is the construction method of the Thunder Pool, and also the result of Junior's comprehension of the Thunder Vanquishing Bead. I hope the two seniors don't mind." Fairy Xingyu smiled slightly, took the jade eyes, and said, "At least you have a conscience. I've already given you so many things, and you only remembered to give me this little bit. The lightning pool has always been a secret of the immortal realm. You were able to obtain the Thunder Obliteration Bead, so you obtained the method to create the lightning pool. Although I don't know if the lightning pool can be used in the immortal realm, it is still a prototype, a direction." Shuji took the jade eye and nodded. "Thank you." Then, Shuji turned to look in the direction of the spaceship and said, "Someone is looking for you." Xiao Hua nodded and looked in the direction Shuji was looking. He saw Gongshu Yixin and Gongshu Yiming flying towards him with excitement and a hint of nervousness. Gongshu Yixin flew in front while Gongshu Yiming hid behind her. Her face was still red. Xiao Hua smiled. He raised his hand and waved at the two women, indicating that they should fly over. Gongshu Yixin immediately sped up, leaving Gongshu Yiming far behind. Gongshu Yiming stomped her feet in the air and chased after them. "That!" Gongshu Yixin flew in front of Xiao Hua, tilted her head and looked at him. She hesitated for a moment, not knowing how to address him. Then she said, "Senior Xiao, how did you cultivate?" Xiao Hua was not unhappy to see this unsophisticated woman asking such a question. After all, only such a woman would have a pure heart. It was precisely this kind of cultivator that could be favored by the heavenly Tao, but he still said angrily, "Palace Master Xingyue and Senior Shu are here. Why don't you greet them first?" "Yes, I was wrong." Gongshu Yixin was straightforward. She hurriedly bowed to Fairy Xingyu and Shuji and said, "Greetings to the two seniors. I just feel that Senior Xiao is really unbelievable. When I saw him last time, he was only about the 5th level of essence energy. In just 200 years, how did he reach the Mahayana realm? I really don't understand. I remember that I blood sacrificially refined an imperial artifact to test my age." Seeing Gongshu Yixin speaking so casually, as though she was an old acquaintance of Shuji and Fairy Xingyu, Xiao Hua coughed twice and said, "Miss Yixin." "Yes, Senior." Although Gongshu Yixin was speaking to Fairy Xingyu, her ears were perked up. When she heard Xiao Hua calling her, she immediately said, "What's the matter?" Junior Gongshu Yiming greets the three seniors. At this moment, Gongshu Yiming had already flown over. She was completely different from Gongshu Yixin. She greeted Xiao Hua politely and placed Xiao Hua last. This meant respect and intimacy. Although Gongshu Yiming was respectful, she still could not see Fairy Xingyu's eyes. Fairy Xingyu asked with interest, Yixin, continue, sure. Gongshu Yixin was about to continue when Gongshu Yiming smiled and said, Sister Yixin, didn't you want to ask about the apprenticeship? Why are you talking about other things? That's right, that's right. Gongshu Yixin immediately came to her senses and asked Xiao Hua, Senior, didn't you say you would find a master for me? Where is he? Xiao Hua smiled and said, Your master is a good friend of mine. His name is Wen Chu. I don't know where he is now. Follow me. When you meet him, I will let you become his apprentice. Wen Chu. Shuji frowned slightly and said, What big words. Fairy Xingyu also felt strange and said, Xiao Hua, what is your good friend's cultivation level? How come I have never heard of his name? Junior's good friend is a hidden expert. Ordinary people don't know about him. Xiao Hua said and looked at Shuji with a guilty conscience. After all, during the 5-brigade cloud painting battle at Blackwind Ridge, Xiao Hua had revealed 3 heavenly hearts. Xiao Hua did not know if Shuji could see through it. Fortunately, Shuji did not suspect him. He only looked indifferently at the Chidi River in the distance. However, at this glance, Xiao Hua discovered something strange. This was because Shuji, who was as cold as a rock, actually had a rare sense of warmth when he saw Fairy Xingyu's appearance. What expert? How come I don't know? Fairy Xingyu obviously did not notice that warmth. She said angrily, Zhai Xinglu's Hall of Heroes has recorded all the high-level cultivators in the 3 continents. Even the Peng Lai Immortal Realm is no exception. Peng Lai Immortal Realm? Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He smiled and said, Are the Dao sect cultivators on the Xian ranking all cultivators from the Peng Lai Immortal Realm? Of course. Fairy Xingyu nodded and said, If it's not the Peng Lai Immortal Realm, how can there be Dao sect cultivators with 8th grade essence power? Even if it's the Western Paradise, the Lei Yin Temple would never allow high-level Dao sect cultivators to exist. Senior, how can a cultivator escape from the Peng Lai Immortal Realm? Xiao Hua said with a smile, After all, that thing is in the hands of Immortal Emperor Gaochen. How would I know? You can ask your good friend who is a Confucian cultivator to ask the Immortal Emperor. Fairy Xingyu said coldly, He's called Wen Chu. I'm afraid he's on par with the Immortal Emperor, right? These words confused Gongshu Isin and Gongshu Yiming. They didn't dare to interrupt and could only wait by the side. Oh, by the way, Miss Yixin, what did you say about the imperial equipment that you refined? Fairy Xingyu suddenly remembered and asked Gongshu Isin with interest. Gongshu Isin answered without thinking, It's nothing. It's just that the imperial equipment measured that Senior Xiao is only 400 or 500 years old. Xiao Hua wanted to stop her, but he thought that if he continued to talk, he would definitely reveal himself. Therefore, he simply stopped talking and waited for the last denial. That's impossible. Fairy Xingyu said with a smile, If he was 500 years old then and 300 years old now, he's only 800 years old. Who in this world can cultivate to the Mahayana realm before the age of 1000? Not only did Fairy Xingyu not believe it, but even Shuji was stunned. He withdrew his gaze from the Chidi River and looked at Xiao Hua. Of course. Xiao Hua said with a smile, At that time, I said that the imperial equipment that Isin refined was a little off. What? When Gongshu Yixin heard Xiao Hua say that her imperial equipment wasn't good, she immediately retorted unconvinced, Senior, Junior's imperial equipment isn't any different on Senior's body, but on other people's bodies, it work. That's Xiao Hua's problem. Fairy Xingyu said with a smile, Isin, do you still have that imperial equipment? Gongshu Isin nodded and said, Of course. Ah, silly girl. Xiao Hua said earnestly, You should be careful. She is a senior, but she's only the palace master of Xingyue. What about me? I'm your future master's good friend. Can't you tell who's closer and who's further away? Don't be sold by others and count the copper coins for them. Yes. Gongshu Isin lowered her head and answered. Her figure flew more than 10 feet away from Fairy Xingyu. Little girl, How about I exchange this for your imperial equipment? Fairy Xingyu raised her hand and took out a jade eye and handed it to Gong Shuisin, saying, you can take a look at it before you decide. Okay. Gong Shuisin took the jade eye. After looking at it, her face was filled with ecstasy and she said anxiously, Senior, this, sure. Fairy Xingyu stopped Gong Shuisin from saying more and only asked, are you willing to exchange this? Gong Shuisin thought for a moment and handed the jade eye back to Fairy Xingyu, saying, it's better not to exchange. Ayo, what do you mean not to exchange? You must exchange. Xiao Hua was anxious. With a flick of his sleeve, he took the jade eye and said, just give your imperial equipment to her. She's in the bidding business. If you don't take advantage of her, who do you want to take advantage of? Yes, Senior. Gong Shuisin rolled her eyes and immediately understood Xiao Hua's words. Without hesitation, she took out the imperial equipment and respectfully handed it to Fairy Xingyu, saying, thank you, Senior. Chapter 4499. Of course, Fairy Xingyu did not care about Xiao Hua's narrow-mindedness. She took the imperial equipment and activated it slightly. Seeing layers of rainbows appear, Fairy Xingyu smiled and said, who said that Miss Yixin is stupid? It is precisely this kind of pure-minded cultivator who can become an array master. I think this imperial equipment is really well refined. Xiao Hua, your good friend is lucky. Of course. Xiao Hua handed the jade eye to Gongshu Yixin and said, Yixin will definitely become an array master of her generation in the future. She will definitely be unprecedented. Haha, if she becomes unprecedented, what about her master? Fairy Xingyu pursed her lips and said with a smile. She will naturally be an unprecedented master. Xiao Hua was not afraid of Fairy Xingyu's sarcasm. This girl cultivates the 5 Qi Thunder. Shuji also spoke. He looked at Xiao Hua thoughtfully and said, it's suitable for you to accept her as your disciple. I have enough disciples, so I won't snatch others' opportunities. Xiao Hua touched his nose and smiled bitterly. You can't accept any more. Fairy Xingyu said with a smile, there is no more space on the Xianhuang list. Here is a small thing for you. Shuji casually took out a palm-sized arc from his bosom, in which there were some lightning threads that formed a knot. He said, this is a natural object. It may not be comparable to the 5 brocade cloud painting, but if you can comprehend something from it, it will be more useful than any secret art or lightning array. Of course, Gongshu Yiming did not dare to act on her own. She looked at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua smiled and said, why are you looking at me? Why wouldn't you want something that is delivered to your door? Thank you, Senior. Gongshu Yiming was overjoyed. She took the arc-shaped object and stood beside Gongshu Yixin happily, looking down at it. Ah, it's good to be young. Fairy Xingyu looked at the imperial equipment in her hand that flew across the sky like a rainbow bridge. Each section of the light was like a growth ring, which seemed to record the vicissitudes of life. She could not help but sigh. Maybe you don't have to care about the past. As long as you live each day well. Shuji did not look at Fairy Xingyu. Fairy Xingyu bit her lips slightly and replied, a person will always be lonely. Only when the 2 butterflies fly will there be happiness. Xiao Hua, look at that flying boat. Shuji ignored Fairy Xingyu as if he was deaf. He pointed at a strange flower-like flying boat in the distance and said, that's the Dongfang family's bamboo flying boat. Bamboo flowers? Xiao Hua stared blankly for a moment, then asked curiously, the flowers of bamboo? Don't tell me, bamboo can bloom? Shuji replied indifferently, bamboo will naturally bloom. However, there is a saying in ancient books, every 60 years, the bamboo will change its roots, and the roots will give birth to flowers, and the flowers will bear fruit, and the fruit will wither, and the fruit will fall and come back to life. Moreover, the bamboo cultivator sifted through the wind and played with the moon. He lived a carefree and unrestrained life, elegant and untainted. He was a modest gentleman. People often use bamboo as their symbol. However, no one knew that although bamboo had a noble character, after being in the mortal world for a long time, it would also be polluted. This bamboo flower was the bamboo's self-cleansing will. Whenever a bamboo flower appeared, it meant that the bamboo could no longer endure the filth and wanted to cleanse itself and be reborn. The Dongfang family is one of the 4 great families of the hidden immortal continent. They used bamboo flowers as the symbol of their family. It's really thought-provoking. Xiao Hua looked at Ruojian, Ruisui, and the rice-like bamboo flowers and said with a wry smile, Junior only feels that this flying boat is uglier than Senior's flying boat. Phut. Fairy Xingyue couldn't help but laugh and said, Don't let Dongfang Qianghao hear this, or he will fight you to the death. Senior. Gongshu Yiming was very obedient. At this time, he had already received the things that Shuji gave him. He carefully pointed at another flying boat and said, That orchid-like flying boat belongs to the Shimen family. Ien, this Xiao understands. Xiao Hua nodded. An empty valley, a solitary flower, elegant and pleasant, is a virtuous person in the world. The Shimen family wants to be a solitary flower, but this Xiao doesn't know much about the 4 great families. I don't know if they can do it. All solitary flowers are fake. If they want to be a solitary flower, why would they appear in front of the Xingyue palace? Fairy Xingyue smiled coldly, looking very disdainful of the 4 great families. Xiao Hua smiled slightly and pointed at the flying boat that was blooming with plum blossoms. He said with a smile, This is a noble person with lofty ideals. He stresses on exploring the waves and cutting the snow and ice. I'm afraid he's from the Nangong family, right? Senior is wrong. Gongshu Yiming corrected him bluntly. The Nangong family stresses elegance and independence. They don't follow the trend of the world and want to be a hermit. Their symbol is the chrysanthemum. Hearing this, Xiao Hua also snorted and said lightly, Senior Xingyue said that the Shimen family's solitary flower is empty, but I said that the Nangong family's independence is bullshit. If they want to be a hermit, they can just hide in the mountains. Why do they have to show off here? Speaking of this, Xiao Hua suddenly asked, Senior, the ancients often say that plum blossoms, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum are the 4 gentlemen of flowers. They stress on pride, seclusion, firmness, and indifference. Junior wants to ask, is this ancient person earlier than the 4 great families? Ha ha. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, Fairy Xingyue understood his meaning. She covered her mouth and laughed, is there a need to ask? This ancient person, of course, is after the 4 great families. If there were no 4 great families, how could there be Confucian cultivators? If there were no Confucian cultivators, how could there be 100 schools of contending? In that case, Xiao Hua said with a smile, the title of plum blossoms, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum is, some people flattering the 4 great families? Yes, if it wasn't a big flattery, how could 4 ordinary flowers be regarded as the 4 gentlemen? Fairy Xingyue also greatly belittled the Confucian cultivators. Gongshu Isin and Gongshu Yiming were dumbfounded. To be honest, they had never thought of this problem. A good illusion was actually said to be so unbearable by Xiao Hua. However, if they thought about it carefully, what Xiao Hua said was very reasonable. Why were the 4 gentlemen of flowers not lotus, not redbud, and not jade lotus? Why were they the most ordinary symbols of the 4 great families? Don't listen to their nonsense. Shuji said in a faint tone, the predecessors can't be verified. Maybe the 4 great families picked the ones they liked from the 4 gentlemen. It's also possible. As the 5 of them spoke, the clouds above the 4 flying boats began to disperse. Many Confucian cultivators flew out of the flying boats, and these cultivators flew to different places. Some cultivators from the various families that had been resting in the mountain range also flew out and landed on the 4 flying boats. It seemed that they were going to visit the disciples of the 4 great families. It seems that there are many Confucian cultivator families close to the 4 great families. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes, looking at the Confucian cultivator disciples flying out, and said meaningfully. Fairy Xingyue said with a double meaning, whether there are many or few, I'm afraid there are more than the Sun family. Separated for a long time, united for a long time, divided for a long time. This seems to be a trend. Xiao Hua nodded. Now is the time of turbulence, and it is also the time of heroes. If so, is it also the time for the Dao sect to rise? Fairy Xingyue looked at Xiao Hua and reminded him worriedly. How would I dare to think about something that even the 2 seniors don't dare to think about? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Besides, The rise of the Tao sect is not something that can be accomplished by one person's strength, nor is it something that can be achieved by one or two generations of disciples. Overestimating oneself is like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You also know that it's like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, Shuji said with a rare smile. The Tao sect in the world has declined early. Today, the hidden immortal Tao sect is opened. With me, Xiao Hua, in the world, how dare I let my disciples be bullied and humiliated? Ha ha! Xiao Hua laughed. This is just one of my ambitions. With my strength and the time I have left, I'm afraid it's impossible to achieve it. Shuji didn't say much. Fairy Xingyue smiled and said, You underestimate yourself too much. With your current ability, although you can't revive the Tao sect, the prosperity of the Tao sect is second only to the ancient times. Moreover, Xingyue. Shuji frowned slightly and scolded. Yes, yes. Fairy Xingyue rolled her eyes and said, And because of your gather, we noticed you. Xiao Hua naturally didn't believe Fairy Xingyue's words, but he didn't care that Fairy Xingyue didn't completely reveal her meaning. Fairy Xingyue must have said that he had the ability to revive the Tao sect, but Xiao Hua knew himself well. He might have the ability to fight against the Immortal Emperor and the Vairocana Buddha, but it was absolutely impossible for him to revive the Tao sect. The current Fortune Gate was not afraid of any of the families of Confucian cultivators, the Sun family of the Immortal Palace, the Buddhist sect, or even any great saint of the Demon Clan. However, the powerful Tao sect of the ancient times was destroyed by the joint forces of the Immortals, Buddhists, and demons. How could the Fortune Gate be a match for the joint forces of the Immortals, Buddhists, and demons? Seeing that the three seniors were talking about the revival of the Tao sect in front of them, Gongshu Isin and Gongshu Yiming looked at each other and lowered their heads slightly, pretending not to hear. By the way, Shuji suddenly asked, Xiao Hua, it seems that you are very resistant to the four great families. Could it be that you and the Sun family of the Immortal Palace, Senior, have you forgotten? I have a good friend who is a Confucian cultivator. He is the Immortal General of the Immortal Palace. Xiao Hua reminded. Haha, I forgot. That Sun Wu is quite interesting. Shuji nodded and then raised his eyebrows. He looked at the flying boat of the four great families and said, The disciples of the four great families are coming. I don't want to see them. You deal with them yourself. After saying that, Shuji flew towards the Chidi River. Xiao Hua looked at Gongshu Isin and Gongshu Yiming and said, You two accompany the seniors and get to know the disciples of the four great families. Perhaps it will be beneficial for you in the future. Yes, senior. Gongshu Isin and Gongshu Yiming agreed in a low voice. They watched Xiao Hua leave with Shuji. When they turned around, they saw four martial grandmasters flying towards them. Fairy Xingyue didn't care, but Gongshu Yiming didn't dare to. She hurriedly wanted to greet them, but when she saw that Gongshu Isin didn't move, she hurriedly pulled on Gongshu Isin's sleeve. Just as she was about to speak, Fairy Xingyue said, You don't have to greet them.